all this evening. Welcome to the Woking Joint Committee. It's dot on 6 o'clock, so let's start. This meeting is being webcast and recorded. Has the webcast started, please, just to do a quick check? Yes?
Yes, Chairman, it has.
So I think we're all quite familiar with these meetings, but just to remind members to use the chat box to indicate if you wish to speak or use the raised hand button. For members of the public who have joined us in the meeting, once your item has finished, you can by all means leave the meeting just by hanging up the call. So that will be fine. We have a number of officers who will be supporting us with reports during this meeting. So I'm just going to read their names so that everyone is aware. So we should have Andrew Mills, Area Highways Manager here. We should have Peter Wells, Parking Officer. We should have Tony Otterson, who's the Town Centre Officer and will be handling the reports on that. Ernest Ameko will be doing the planning report, and then Camilla Edmiston will be doing the community safety report. And of course, we've got Nikki and Natalie supporting us as well in terms of making sure that the meeting is going swimmingly. I'm just going to make a note of just reading out the names of members of the committee. And so when I introduce you, can you please just indicate that you are here so that we have confirmation of who's present for the meeting. So I'll just start with myself. I'm Aisha Azad, member for South West Woking, chairman of the committee and leader of Woking Borough Council. So I'm just going to go in alphabetical order. So Liz Bowes.
Sorry, just the classic unmute. Hello, my name is Liz Bowes and I'm the County Councillor for Woking South East. Thank you.
Amanda Boot, representing the Byfleet, is here, I think. Yep.
Hello, everybody. County Councillor for the Byfleets and Borough Councillor for Byfleet and West Byfleet. Thanks.
Ben Crasco is here. I'm pretty sure.
I'm Ben Crasco, County Councillor for Woking North.
Taj Hussain.
Sorry, State Chairman. Taj Hussain, County Councillor for Naphill, Goldsworth West, and also a Borough Councillor for Naphill. Good evening.
Will Forster.
Will Forster, County Councillor for Woking South.
We have apologies of absence from Councillor Kemp, I believe. Councillor David Biddleston.
Good evening, David Biddleston, Councillor for Mount Hermon.
Councillor Simon Ashall.
Yes, good evening. Simon Ashall, Borough Councillor for Heathlands.
Gary Elson.
Gary,
we have apologies.
Yeah, Gary did give his apologies that he might not be able to join us. So,
Councillor Aziz.
Good evening, everybody. Tahir Aziz, Borough Councillor for Canal Side.
Councillor Anne-Marie Barker. Okay, I think she may join us a bit later on, so we don't have her here at the moment. Councillor Graham Christie.
Graham, you seem to be on mute.
You're muted. You're still muted, Graham. But we can see you, so that's fine.
Okay, Graham Christie. Good evening, Borough Councillor for Purford.
Lovely, thank you. And last but not least, Councillor Melanie Whitehand.
Hi, good evening, Councillor Melanie Whitehand, Councillor for Naphill Ward.
Excellent, thank you very much. So we're now going to go straight into the open public forum for members of the public who are invited to ask any questions about council services within the community. No advance notice is needed. If answers are not able to be provided this evening, then of course a written reply will be provided after the meeting. But I do believe we have a number of residents here, and I think the first one is the Lanceman, who has a question for the committee. Is Stuart here?
Sorry,
You might be muted.
yeah, okay, I'm here now. Sorry about that.
No problem, thank you.
Right.
Go ahead, Stuart.
Right. I would like the garden licence of 12 and 14 Paxton Gardens re-examined, as I think a mistake has been made, resulting in me losing about 2/3 of my canal frontage. The problem is the garden licences go down to a bend in the canal. I always thought that I had a garden licence that was at an angle which would reflect a reasonable amount of access to the canal in relation to my house/garden width, something which I thought I always enjoyed over the last 36 years of residency. If the garden licence for number 14, that's next door, is deemed to be correct, I would lose practically all usable access. Therefore, I would like both garden licences to be rewritten to give us both a fair amount of land. And if this was right, I wonder why I wasn't consulted when number 14 was given this amount of garden licence, as their licence has caused a bit of a neighbourly dispute.
Thank you very much, Stuart. And I'm sorry to hear about your experience.
Mm-hmm.
Have you approached the Basingstoke Canal Authority regarding this?
I have done over a number of years, and they seem to just allow the laissez-faire sort of thing. If you've got a more aggressive, or I should say assertive attitude, and just say this is yours and you've got the licence from the Canal Authority.
Chairman, may I comment on this one, please?
I will just come back to you that, Ben, if you could just put it in the chat box, that'd be helpful. Lovely. And I'll come back to you once. Stuart, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Also, I believe that the fence that has now been put up is about 7 foot high, and also must be, because my garden goes down a bit further towards the canal than next door's, it's very near, it's just a few metres short of the canal. It must be on canal land. Yet a ranger apparently went along and said, obviously, well, as far as I know or can tell, he just looked across from the other side of the canal, because nobody's been down to the bottom of my garden, and said that was okay. But I feel that's wrong as well. I'm really more concerned with the amount of garden licence, which will, over these last 36 years or so, let me be more concise. Because it's on a bend, I believe that the garden licence should have been put at right angles, which would allow a similar width in relation to the house or garden to each property. If both neighbours took their fence straight down, then I would lose virtually all of the garden licence that I'm paying for, all access to the canal.
Thank you, Stuart. Ben Crasco has indicated to, Councillor Ben Crasco has indicated to speak. Ben, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. For the benefit of the members of the committee, I had never heard of garden licenses until Stuart raised this point, so I think it's worth explaining a little bit. Garden licenses are a responsibility of Surrey County Council today. What happens is that if there is public land which is owned by an authority, the authority can permit residents use of that land, but not ownership of that land. And Stuart has been in that situation. However, there appears to have been some problem with the allocation of licenses, and let's not go into the whys and wherefores. And there seems to be an overlap of two different licenses. So everybody acknowledges there appears to be an issue. The question is how to resolve it. At the moment, the county is in the process of transferring this responsibility, but it hasn't happened yet. So right today, nobody is able and willing to take ownership of resolution. My suggestion to Stuart was raise this today so it brings it to the attention of the committee, but we take it as an action to ensure that as we have responsibility for the canal, this problem is resolved in the near term. And I think provided he had that assurance, Stuart would be happy with.
Thank you, Ben. I think that's thank you, Ben. I think that's really helpful. Now, I'm aware that the Basingstoke Canal Authority does have a meeting coming up on the 18th of November, so I think it may be helpful to attend that meeting and just articulate some of the concerns at that point. But I think Ben is right. The committee absolutely notes the concerns, and I think if we can pick those up with the Basingstoke Canal Authority and then pick it up with County Council, that would be helpful. So much for attending the meeting here.
Thank you for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Welcome. You're most welcome. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to move on. Could everybody just mute? I'm getting just a bit of echo. Thank you. So I'm going to move along to the next members of public, and I think we have Sally Hodgkins, Tammy Nathan, Bridget Nicholson, and Robert Hopkins. Perhaps they're here. So who would like to lead on this particular? I can see Tammy. Because you're in my view. Do you want to lead on this, or is there somebody else from your group? Because I think all you are talking about the same issue.
Yes, we are. Yeah. So I live at Eve Road, and we've got a few questions. I'm actually asking these questions on behalf of some of the residents in Eve Road and Arno Road. We understand that the proposal to introduce this resident permit scheme in Eve Road and Arno Road that's being presented today by the Parking Strategy and Implementation Team is there for the approval. Once it's been approved by the Joint Committee, the formal consultation, we understand, is likely to happen during the first quarter of 2021. So we wanted to understand, when are you able to give us an idea when the formal consultation with the residents not the formal consultation, when the actual implementation of the scheme is likely to happen? I was given the impression that it can happen towards the end of 2021, but then obviously because of COVID and other issues, it could get postponed as well. The other question that I have is, are you able to give us assurance to the residents that we are able to discuss the details of the consultation with the Parking Strategy and Implementation Team during the consultation phase, with regards to items such as the business permits criteria, the control hours for the scheme, and also some residents have wanted to actually include any road markings which could be redundant at the moment during the consultation phase. We just want to be able to discuss this with the parking team. We would also, there is one resident in particular who was concerned about the admin fee for the change every time the permit has to be changed. The admin fee that they'll have to pay, because I believe he uses quite a few, or his car changes quite a few times every week or even every month. So he was concerned about that. So I wasn't quite sure if the council could do anything about it, and also get an update on the two car parks which are at the end of the Arnold Road. I do know that Woking Borough Council and Surrey County Council are discussing it at the moment, or are going to be discussing it in the near future with regards to getting that included in the permit scheme. So we just want to be able to get an update on that as well. So we're not expecting an answer right now, but we just want to be able to discuss these matters when the actual consultation phase is happening, which I believe is during the beginning of next year.
Thank you very much, Tammy. Now, I think you've had a response from one of the officers in terms of this, but maybe you haven't seen that. So obviously this is very much at the moment at the proposal stage, and it has to go through all of those channels of official advertising and then consultation with residents. So it's got to go through all of those hoops. But we have Peter Wells here who can perhaps pick up some of your questions, and then if the Division Council wants to add anything, I can come to them. So Peter, if you could just pick up a few of those, because I know you responded, but I think for everybody else's benefit might be good. Thank you.
Hi. I'm Peter. I'm the parking engineer. Good evening, Tammy.
Hi.
Hi. I received the emailed questions that you sent me, so I've got some answers prepared for those. The first question you said was about residents correct in understanding that this proposal to introduce residence permit scheme being presented this evening is for approval. If we get approval this evening, that is approval for us to formally advertise and consult with all the residents. That's the approval we're looking for this evening. If that is granted, then we will formally advertise and consult with the residents, say, in the first quarter of next year. When that consultation begins, we'll distribute information to every household about how a permit scheme works. There'll be a questionnaire. We can give you some options about what hours you would like the scheme to operate or what days you would like it to operate. When the consultation finishes, obviously we'll gather all the responses, and then in order for it to proceed any further, we need most people to be supportive of it. Obviously, if that doesn't happen, then we won't go any further than that. But if the majority of responses do show support, then obviously which days and hours are the most popular are the ones we'll sort of go with. And then you asked about introducing it. Assuming everything goes well with regarding coronavirus and so forth, introducing it should be in the summer of next year if all goes smoothly. And then you asked for assurances. Regarding business permits, I've been reading the traffic order for the existing Woking controlled parking zone. At the moment, in the existing controlled parking zone, it says one business permit is permitted for each business in the CPZ area, but more permits can be applied for and issued at the discretion of the issuing authority. So I was working on the basis that we would use the same criteria if this scheme got introduced as already exists in the Woking Town Centre area. And then there's other criteria, assuming the scheme goes ahead. We do have situations where people have more than one vehicle or use more than one vehicle in other CPZs around the county, and we have worked out like individual situations with particular residents. So if we get to the stage where we are implementing the scheme and there are some residents that may swap vehicles, we can work something out individually with those people as they need to do that. Let's see what else. The two car parks. Might need my colleague Jeff McManus to assist me with that. And initially, they don't form part of the public highway, so probably if the scheme goes ahead and it's installed, they might not be included straight away. But I think Jeff and I are working to hopefully resolve that so they could be included in the coming months.
Great, thank you very much, Peter. That's helpful. And if we can, in terms of the car parks, if we can get a response from Jeff and forward it on to Tammy, that would be helpful, just for the expediency of time, if that's okay, Tammy.
Yeah, that's great.
I did have a couple of speakers on this, so I'm just going to pick those up before Peter, I come back to you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So first is Councillor Aziz, who wanted to make a comment on this, and then I have Councillor Boot after that.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'm very thankful to the Tommy, Bridget, Stuart, all the residents bringing this matter to the committee this evening. We got a petition, I think, over 200 people. They are, I think, what they all agreement of some sort of enforcement on these two roads, which is, for my view, is well overdue. I don't want to go into much details because we had a few Zoom meetings or before even Jeff was involved as well. About one thing the gentleman just mentioned about the business permit, I'm not sure that, as far as I know, none of the business is allowed to have any permit in CPZ2. I'm not sure any other CPZ, but as far as I know, none of the business allowed to have even a single permit. They can have like vouchers for that, but not the permit. Secondly, I will be keen to include these 2 car parks. Of course, I want to see more details, but even for time beings, if we enforce 2 roads, those 2 car parks will be a junkyard. At the moment, it's also all the cars are abandoned, is not enforced, so it's causing a lot of the problem and antisocial behaviour from there. So that needs to be enforced somehow. But also it's quite helpful in terms of timing. The different residents have a different view about the different point of views of timings. That would be very helpful if we agreed some sort of agreement or something with the most desirable option for the resident. But these 2 roads, they're very narrow roads, and the cars are parked on both sides, and they are very contrived already. And the businesses next door, that was one of the issues we're having across the road. Some of those people parking frequently on these cars. So that if we keep issuing more permits to a business, that won't be very helpful to the resident. So this is something we should be looking carefully. And also, one thing I want to suggest, we don't want. I'm not very keen to have extension of CPZ2 to these 2 roads. Ideally, we would like to have a separate CPZ for these 2 roads with their own distinct enforcement timing and all that. Thank you very much. So hopefully the officer will, maybe Jeff will answer some of them.
Thank you very much, Councillor Aziz. I'm sure most of those points will come out during the consultation period, but they're worth noting. And Councillor Boot, if you wanted to say something on that, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to ask Peter about the consultation process with residents for the CPZ. And when you look to consult with the residents, what happens in the case where a house is a rented property and has tenants? Do you consult with the tenants, or do you look to consult with the landlord, or is it both? Thank you.
Hi, Amanda. We'll put the letters through the doors of the properties. So assuming they go to the tenants, and then the tenants can either contact their landlord and discuss it with them, because I don't think we're going to know who the landlord is unless we get information.
Yes.
So we'll just be consulting directly with the tenant.
Okay, thanks, Peter. That's really helpful.
I've got a couple of other questions I could answer. From the,
yes, by all means, Peter. Yeah.
Going back to Eve Road and Arnold Road.
Yeah, if there's no other resident that wants to raise a point, then Peter, please go ahead.
I wasn't sure if people were looking for business permits to be available or not to be available in Eve Road and Arnold Road if a scheme went ahead. So, say you can get business permits in Woking Town Centre, but not in Area 2, as the councillor said. So I was like, I don't know if you were looking for business permits to be made available. If so, we could use the town centre example. But if we don't want business permits, if that's the whole point, so they don't have to be included. Also, it wasn't supposed to be an extension of Area 2. If the scheme went ahead, it would be a separate standalone CPZ, Eve Road and Arnold Road. It's just the days of the week and the hours of the day that it would operate. We initially proposed to be the same as Area 2 for consistency. There's one other question from earlier when Tammy was asking about excessive lines that might need removing or could look at, see if they need removing. I wonder if you could possibly email me, let me know which lines you're thinking about.
Yeah, we'll do.
If we did want to take them out, we would have to advertise it when we do the formal consultation. If we don't do it at that stage, then we won't be able to take them out. So if you can let me know beforehand, I will go and have a look and see if that's practical.
Yeah, we'll do it.
Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much. We have 5 minutes or so left from this open forum for.
Okay, so can I just ask, is it, do we want permits or do we not want business permits? Is that how this is going?
Yeah, well, we're thinking of, residents do not want, they want to limit the number of business permits that's being issued to.
Okay.
We're thinking of a couple of businesses, but I'm not quite sure about the other businesses. It's the nature of the business that we're concerned about, because one of them is they lease cars. So they have, so we find that there are loads of cars parked and they don't tend to move a lot. And also there is another business which is a garage, so they repair cars. So we have customers who normally park on Eve Road and Arnold Road, and also they take up most of the car parks. So it's the nature of the business that's causing concern, really. So the residents want to really minimise the number of business permits issued to the businesses. So so I think what we want to know is, for example, as long as they're not going to be given a huge number of business permits, because we're concerned that they might allow customers to park on spaces, and we're short of spaces on Eve Road and Arnold Road. And also, I'm not quite sure how these business permits work, because with resident permits, I understand that we have vehicle registrations being displayed on it, whereas with business permits, is that a requirement for the vehicle registration to be displayed?
Thank you, Tammy. Just before you answer that, Peter, I've just got Councillor Whitehand wants to make a comment, and then Councillor Ali. So if they could just make their comments as quickly as possible, because we've only got literally 3 minutes left. Go ahead. Councillor Whitehand, you go first.
Okay, thanks very much, Chairman. It's a couple of issues, if I may, but I will be brief. Is there an appetite, carrying on from the parking and the inconvenience to residents, etc., is there any appetite for traffic orders that will forbid pavement parking, looking at how that may be introduced? I know there was some discussion at government level about reviewing this kind of action, because I represent Nap Hill along with Councillor Said Hussain and Councillor Deborah Harlow. It's a small village, and the roads, it was established over many years back, and the pavements are being used now as parking for cars because the roads are very narrow, but it is causing a considerable amount of inconvenience to pedestrians. And, there's that I think it's a metre, or there's that statutory distance between where a car is and the access for people with wheelchairs and buggies, etc. But that is being completely ignored. So I just wondered whether this is going to be part of a discussion on the traffic orders forbidding pavement parking. And also, could you just give me some more further information on park smart notices, because that has been floated as well, and I understand that they can be issued, but they're reluctantly to issue, and when they are issued, as and when, they're never really enforced. So maybe you could give me some more understanding of what the purpose of park smart notices and whether they are really a good tool to use against people parking inconsiderately. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Whitehand. So I've got Councillor Aziz and Councillor Ali indicated. So I'm going to go with Councillor Aziz first. I think he indicated. Councillor Ali, and I'll come to you. I've literally got 1 minute, so I might not be able to come to you, Councillor Ali. Go on, Councillor Aziz.
Very quick. Just one. One thing I just want to mention about this business permit. As far as I know, Peter, there's no business actually falls on even Arden Road, apart from one business, I think, which is the other end. And most of the businesses, the other side of business on Eve Road, they are all on new bypass road of Albert Drive. So I don't think so. Us and I will be likely to see same conditions in CPZ Zoo. So no business should be allowed any permit. That will be the best outcome of it, or that will be best for the resident.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Aziz. We are, I'm afraid, at the end of our half an hour. It's essentially for residents to articulate views, which I think they've done. any unanswered questions and points raised by members, I think, will be noted by Peter and go through the process of noting those down and putting in the consultation. But I'm afraid I'm going to have to leave it there and move forward. Thank you so much to residents for attending and articulating your concerns. And yeah, just hang up when you're ready to do so, because we're moving on to the next part of the meeting. Thank you very much. Okay, so
Chair, may I just clarify? Then you're not letting me speak. Is that correct?
I'm afraid we've come to the end. So yes, we've run out of time. I would have obviously loved to have heard you speak, but unfortunately,
all right, Chair, that's all right. Just as a point, because I think members started discussing this item 11, and they could have done it in their own time when you would have reached item 11. I had put this request to you, and I just wanted for the record that I never got a reply from you back on whether I would be allowed to speak or not. And here we are, where you've told me we've run out of time.
Thank you.
So I just wanted it on the record, Chair. That,
no problem at all. Thank you very
really
much.
Disappointing.
That's not a surprise, but thank you. Okay, so we're going to go on to the next agenda item, which is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence, please?
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor Colin Kemp and from Councillor Gary Gary Elson, sorry.
Gary Elson, thank you.
I was going to say.
So the next one is, okay, thank you for that. Minutes of previous meeting. Are the minutes for the meeting held on 4th of March agreed? Please. Agreed. Thank you very much. Next is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, please? I can't see anybody, but I assume no. Okay, thank you. So we go on to agenda item 4, which is election of vice chair. Due to Councillor Biddleston standing down as leader of Woking Borough Council, the committee will need to elect a new vice chair for the committee. This needs to be an executive level member, and therefore I would like to nominate Councillor Simon Ashall and ask for a seconder, please.
I would like to second.
Oh, fine. I was going to second, but
thank you. Can that be noted, please? And then we're going to move, and therefore Simon Ashall is the vice chair of the committee.
Sorry, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor.
And I didn't see you'd indicate. Oh yes, you have indicated that you'd like to speak on. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. When did I wasn't aware there was a criteria that the vice chair of the committee had to be an executive member. But where's that dictated?
Muted. So that is actually in the joint committee constitution, as agreed by Woking Borough Council and Surrey County Council, that the vice chair has to be an executive member, as can be confirmed by officers if needs be.
Oh no, okay, that's fine. I've never heard that before, but okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we move along. So we are now moving along to, am I muted? No, I'm not. Agenda item 5, which is written public questions. So we've received 4 written questions from members of the public. The questions and responses are published in the supplementary papers. The responses have been circulated in advance of the meeting to the residents who have asked the question. So the first question is from Claire Johnston, asking about asked a question about Sapwood crossing, Salford Drive crossing point, and we also, I believe, have our MP Jonathan Lord, who has requested to attend on this item. So do we have Claire? Does she have a supplementary question? I can't see, but Claire, are you here in terms of asking a supplementary question?
Hello. Thank you.
Hello,
you for taking,
Claire. Hi.
Hello. Thank you very much for taking the time to answer my supplementary question. I've looked in detail at the response. You've taken the time to give me, so thank you for that. I just wanted to follow up to fully understand your response, because from reading it as a layperson, my interpretation of it is that no action will be taken despite it being 2 years on. And I just wanted to confirm whether that's the case. And I understand that money is tight, but if money is tight, then what is the next procedure? So, for example, if you as a committee can't assist with this, how do we then proceed forward to get some action, as we are 2 years on from the initial petition? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Claire. Thank you, that's helpful. I'm just going to get the area's highway manager to comment on that. If Andrew, are you there? If you'd just like to pick up.
I am, Madam Chairman.
Yes, thank you. If you just wanted to pick up.
You can see me.
I just through the process.
I'm afraid, Madam Chairman, your sound keeps fading in and out, so I haven't always been able to hear everything you've said. But hopefully you can hear me okay. It is a sad fact in many ways that we have a very long list of requests for highway infrastructure improvements for Woking, and that's reflected for all of the other boroughs and districts across the county. The number of requests we deal with are always significantly above the amount of things that we're able to afford. And although this particular item, I know is something that you've been interested in for the last couple of years, but there are in fact many items on that list that have been on that list for a substantially longer time than that. And typically, the Joint Committee will receive historically somewhere between £100,000 and £200,000 per annum to fund capital highways improvements, and this usually means that unless the schemes are relatively inexpensive, we're not able to promote more than a couple of different schemes each year. Based on the prioritisation system that we you review each request using, this presently sits, I think, somewhere round about in 20th position on our list. What that means in practice is if we don't have funding available through the Joint Committee, and it's not at this time a priority based on the prioritisation system, we would look where we can to make use of other funding sources if they become available. And I think we did communicate the fact that we looked at trying to add this into some major scheme work that this may have been appropriate for at one point. And we also look where we can to tie this in with developer funding and SIL funding where it's appropriate to do so. So it's not a case of us not having money, it's 2 years on and we're not going to do anything at all. It simply means that we haven't got an identified source of funding at this time. We do have to promote the schemes that have a higher priority than this, but at the same time, we continue to actively search for ways of delivering this if we can find them. I hope that helps.
Can I come in, Madam Chair?
Yes, that's Jonathan Lord, RMP. Did you want to say something, Jonathan?
Yes, thank you very much indeed. And obviously, this particular, I'm sympathetic to this one, as so many other on the agenda, and I do understand, not least as a former county councillor, the constraints, the financial constraints and difficult decisions that officers and councillors have to make. But this particular one on Sapwood Drive, I understand it's right on the cusp between Woking Borough and Elmbridge. And I just wonder, and I believe it's also been put to the Elmbridge local committee as well. And I just wonder whether going forward, we could look at combining monies from the Woking pot, if you like, from the Elmbridge pot, together perhaps with SIL payments, perhaps together with some extra funding from the allocations of the relevant county councillors on either side of that as well, of that particular boundary as well, and maybe try to progress things that way. And could I ask, obviously I'm happy to liaise with the neighbouring MP for that area. But perhaps this committee and you, Madam Chairman, could help me just try and forge some links with Elmbridge on this to see if we might be able to take it forward and prioritise it a bit more by using 2 pots rather than 1.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. That's helpful. Amanda Boot, you wanted to speak.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I just wanted to add to what Mr. Lord was saying there. We actually spoke about this a bit earlier today, and just to say, this originally came about from a petition of 340 signatures back in, I think it went to the Elmbridge Joint Committee in November 2018. Then it came again to our committee in 2019. So it's been a real ongoing issue. And I think predominantly because we've got huge problems with lorries coming along the Sopwith Drive. It's a dual carriageway where we've had to put yellow lines all along it actually this summer because of COVID and the increase in online shopping. Actually at the Brooklands estate there, we've got the biggest Amazon depot in the south. And so we've also got the Ocado delivery main depot, lots and lots of key depots with lorries coming up and down that road. And I think a lot of residents are increasingly concerned that there's going to be an accident. And that's because that Sopwith Drive actually leads up to, there's a specific footpath, footpath 24, that leads up to the Brooklands nursery, and then there's also a huge playground at Brooklands, and that has become a lot more popular and a lot more used as a result of COVID when we all started going out for our daily walks, etc. And you've also got the big Tesco and M&S, big shopping area up there as well. So it's not really safe for residents to go along Sopwith Drive and to cross, and so luckily, there's not really been any accidents as such, just accidents with the lorries themselves. But we feel it's an accident potentially waiting to happen.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Councillor Booth. Councillor Bowes, you wanted to speak on this item, please?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I fully appreciate this issue. But may I just say one thing, and we have Andrew Milne here who can confirm this, but it's my understanding that different areas have different allocations of funding for highways. And I understand that Elmbridge has a higher allocation for highways and this is based on the road length in each area. So if an amount is agreed, please may it be a proportion of budget rather than an amount, because obviously it would have a detrimental effect on Woking as opposed to another area. And I think we need to be fair. So may it be, please, a proportion, a percentage of budget rather than an actual amount, if that is in fact the way forward. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. I have got 3 other questions, so I am going to move this along, but your points are noted, and we will try and get some clarity on this, Claire, if that's okay with you. Thank you so much for attending. Thank you. So I'm going to go to question 2, which is from Trevor Cladwell, Sally Cormack, and Andrew Murren. Asked a question about speeding on Woodham Road. Are any of you on the call, and do you have a supplementary question to ask?
Yes, myself and Andy are on the call. Sally hasn't been able to join us.
Okay, please, did you have a supplementary question to ask, Trevor?
Yes, Madam Chairman, if you don't mind, that'd be great.
Yes, of course, please go ahead.
What I'd like to do, first of all, is welcome the response we got. I thought it was very detailed. And we do recognise that any plan does need to consider the results of the investigation into that very, very tragic accident here at the end of August. I do think we need more data and more information as we put forward in the request, because it's not just a problem at my end of the road, the 6 Crossroads end. Sally lives at the other end and tells me that she has similar problems of speeding at her end, and I believe all of the information has been gathered at this end. I think in the paper there's good discussion on possible ways of reducing speeds, but I would like to hear what the experts would recommend for our very specific situation, which is, I think, although average speeds, as was pointed out in the response, are pretty close to 30 miles an hour, that does mean that more than 50% of the cars are traveling faster than 30 miles an hour. And every 6 or 7 minutes, there's a car going faster than 40 miles an hour through this area. So it's not, these aren't just over 30 or so. This is a significant issue. I'd also point out, I think traffic has increased on these roads, on this road in the last few years, and that tends to reduce the average, I think, but doesn't reduce the people who are doing excessive speeds. So just first piece on the response. And then secondly, I actually quite like the idea of, as a temporary basis of de-restricting the parking bays. Would be interested to know what was involved in actually doing that. I've got one outside my front door, and I'd be quite happy for it to be de-restricted and for a car to be parked there most of the day. I think it would help slow things down a lot.
Thank you very much, Trevor. I'm just going to go to Beryl Honeywicks, who is the ward councillor, because she has indicated that she would like to speak before I try and get a response from Andrew. Beryl, if you'd like to speak, please.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. Yes, I'm really appreciative of all that Mr. Caldwell has done since the very tragic accident in August when someone was killed. He was in touch, and we've had very good communication, and also with Mr. Murrin as well. I hadn't heard about the de-restricted parking bays. Certainly there aren't many who use it, even when they can do along there. But it might be a possibility, although most people have got quite long drives. But I'm also very appreciative of the comments that have come from the Surrey Police and also from Highways, and particularly Andrew Milne, who are obviously taking time to look at the whole situation around where the accident took place. It is a bit of a rat run, and those that know it well will use it, rather than using the Chertsey Road out of Woking. So I really would be, if I was urging Highways, Surrey Police, that something needs to be done down there. I know there's a certain amount of road signs down there, but the road sign coming from the Six Crossroads is not very big. In fact, you can hardly see it at all. And from the other direction, coming from the town towards the Six Crossroads, there's no real sign coming up and saying, this is a 30-mile-an-hour limit. I think there's been quite a lot of good work that's been done over the years down Brewery Road. I know it's taken a long time, but the big flashing sign that happens on that bend in Brewery Road certainly does bring you up to a halt, because it's set at about 27 miles an hour. So almost everybody will get a flashing sign down there because it's set at 27 miles an hour, not 30. But it does seem to reduce. People are reminded with this huge sign that's down there. And I just wondered whether, something could be put in along Woodham Road. So I'm very much supporting the residents here, as is Councillor Kemp.
Very much. Councillor Ben Krasker, you've wanted to speak. If you could just make it as succinct, because obviously I've got three other questions.
So quick, big thank you to Kevin Patching, who has done a lot of work in this area. I think just a health warning, a lot of people, when they're talking about controlling speed, assume that the answer is speed humps. That is not appropriate in this road. So Kevin's been exploring, and I've urged him to keep exploring other alternatives which will help calm traffic. And I think that's what we should be looking for.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. I'm just going to bring in Kevin Patching, one of the Highways officers, to comment on some of the points made, please. Kevin, I can't see you, but you're here somewhere.
Thank you. The comment I want to make actually is with regard to the sign in Brewery Road. The reason that flashes at 27 is because it's broken. It's a type of, apparently it's a problem with that particular make of sign, whereby as it gets older, the trigger speed automatically comes down. We would not set a sign to flash at 27 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour road.
Kevin,
that would normally have. Sorry, it might work, yes, but we wouldn't set it at 27 when it goes in. Just to let you know that's the reason why it's going off all the time.
Thank you, Kevin. That's helpful. Were there any other?
Yeah, I'd like to say
yes, Andy, go ahead.
A lot of talk about the police traffic report that seems to hinge on everything at the moment, because obviously there was a fatality, and it seems to be slowing things down. Does anybody know when the report will be completed? I've tried to find out, and they said it hasn't been completed, and they won't release anything. So does anybody know when it will be?
It's difficult, I guess, to ascertain exactly when. I think the only person that might know is Andrew. Would you know where the police are in terms of the investigation, or are you as unclear as us as well?
No, we don't have a definitive date from Surrey Police yet. And if you do ask them a question like that, they will typically say, it depends on the individual circumstances. There is also availability and a number of other things. I wouldn't want to hazard a guess in this meeting. I think the best thing would be if we talk to them again, and as soon as we do have an estimate from them, we can share that with members of the committee.
Okay. And then one other question, if
you can quickly, Andy, because I've got two other people wanting to speak.
I appreciate funding is an issue here, but surely if we could reduce the speed limits from 50 to 30 and 30 to 20, there's not a lot of money involved in doing that. I know there's a process to go through, but even as a temporary measure in the short term, would that not be something that could be considered?
No, is the short answer. We have obviously a speed setting policy that very clearly lays out what we can and cannot do with regard to changing speed limits on the public highway. This is a policy that's been agreed collaboratively with Surrey Police. That where we can, it's possible to reduce a speed limit based on the existing speeds of vehicles. Where it's appropriate to do that, we do. On other occasions, we need to put in traffic calming, so physical traffic calming at the same time, because based on sort of evidence from case studies where these things have been tested nationally, changing the speed limit signs along a road of itself doesn't have a significant impact on vehicle speeds. So I do think, based on the feedback we have already provided through our written response to committee, we want to wait for the outcome of the Surrey Police investigation, after which we will be in a much clearer position to make recommendations in terms of what would be an appropriate intervention at this location. And I would like to assure everybody that's taking part in the discussion this evening that we are very mindful of residents' concerns. We do want to, as best as we can, meet those concerns and do something positive here. But as we have already discussed in this meeting, we do receive a large number of requests across the borough for a variety of different improvements, and we do have to seek to prioritise the limited funding available for those. And that's ultimately the prerogative of Woking Joint Committee to make those decisions based on officer recommendation and what members themselves feel is appropriate.
Thank you, Andrew. I am going to move this discussion forward now, because I've got two other questions and other members of the public wanting to ask. So the question, thank you for attending, Trevor and Andy. So the next question is question 3, which is from Adam Kirby, Claire Draper and Neil McPherson. Ask questions about Horsell Moor and traveller excursions. Are they here, and do they have a supplementary question?
Hello, hi, thank you for taking time. Yes, I'm here.
Hello, yeah, did you have a supplementary question?
Yes, I did.
As quick as possible.
I will make it quick. Thank you for taking the time. So I thought that the current state, the written answer was a very good summary of the situation as is, but there were 2 points I wanted to make which may help move things forward. The first, I wanted to really emphasise that in this particular example on Horsell Moor, it's the same group of individuals who have now multiple times camped illegally on exactly the same spot. So I wanted to clarify what the legal position was there and whether that fact it's a multiple incursion would help to speed things up, particularly since I think they're quite tactical about which day of the week, i.e. Friday evening, they start. And the second point I wanted to make, the second question, is about the cost of the clear-up. And I wondered whether if we could have some transparency of an estimate of the cost of clear-up, it might help move the debate about either a longer-term solution with a transit site or some other solutions in terms of, I appreciate we can't barricade every green space, but other solutions. I think it might move that debate forward if we had a clear, transparent estimate of the cost of clearing up after these instances.
Thank you, Adam, for your supplementary. I'm just going to go to Jeff McManus and see if he can pick up that question briefly, please, Jeff.
I'm not sure I can do this briefly, Chair, but certainly it's always difficult with traveller incursions. We were acutely conscious it was the same group, although we had to do some assessments to determine that. With these situations, we try to avoid going to court, because if we go to court, we will have longer stays of the travellers in our experience. So certainly our approach is to just be there repeatedly, make the right noises. If we end up going to court, that's what we do, but we do try to avoid it. And that's kind of worked pretty successfully. In terms of costs, it is the case that through the contract arrangement we have currently with Serco, there is no direct cost to Woking Borough Council. There's clearly a cost for the disposal of materials, etc. But I would only be doing estimated costs. I think relatively, even though it doesn't look great, and you've seen it yourself firsthand, the residents, we don't do too bad in Woking. There are some serious fly tipping and traveller issues elsewhere. I can get estimates, but I'm not sure that would push the conversation along as you suggest. Happy to deal with it outside of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and thank you, Adam, for your question. I'm going to go to question 4 now, which is from Maddie Key, asked about a question about road safety around Marshall Parade in Hereford. Maddie, I don't think is on the call, so there isn't a supplementary question, but I think Liz Bowes has requested to speak, and I see that Graham Christie is raising that. So Liz, if you go first, and then I'll come to you, Councillor Christie.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this, obviously, the important thing is that this has been recognised, and under item 11, as it says, there is a proposal. I think it's very important that we do this as a step-by-step approach, because, and then obviously, if the proposal for the double yellow lines outside 10, 12 and 14 does not materialise, then perhaps to go for the time restrictions rather than put everything in place, which may be too big a, may crack the nut a little bit too much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Christie, if you could just make your point as succinctly as you could, because I've got to then go to member questions.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I agree with my colleague. The only thing I'd like to add is it's actually a bigger problem than that, because we have got a dangerous corner leading in. We have cars parked all over the place. We have cars going in the grass. We really need to look at the whole situation, and it's compounded by the fact that we have new flats and new shops building and should be completed soon, and this is going to exacerbate it. So really, I would like a look at it, please, just as to see how we would cater for the new premises, which are really going to make things much worse. So is it something we could have another look at, please? Say, give it 4 or 5 months?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to move along now to members' questions. So we have 3 original questions from Councillor Forster and Councillor Anne-Marie Barker. Councillor Forster, you have, I assume you've seen the responses as they were printed in the supplementary reports.
I have no supplementary questions, Chairman, which will stop your timekeeping.
So much appreciated. Councillor Barker, did you have a supplementary question? Can't see you, but you're here somewhere.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I did have a supplementary question, if I may. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for the response from Nigel Denning. I still don't think it really answers the question. I think the query outstanding is around whether the building was actually destroyed at the time of the original fire, or whether in fact the additional damage occurred later, because the building wasn't very well protected during the time following the fire, and it seems to residents that probably quite a lot of damage occurred at that time. So it'd be good to just have some clarity about that and how well Surrey looked after the asset. And then just to clarify, really looking forward to the future, it's still not clear whether Lakers was actually included in the consultation about future potential youth sites. At one point it was, another point we were told it wasn't included because it had been destroyed. So it'd be good to know about that. And it's surprising that there's very little information about plans going forward, because it has been suggested in the past that there are some plans for that site. So a little bit more clarity really and information would be helpful on that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barker. I mean, I can pick up some of those from Surrey County Council's perspective. So I think the Lakers was included in the county's consultation, but the point was made that the county was looking for member engagement and outside sources to try and take that over in terms of running of any services, and none were forthcoming from when I was last aware of it. But is there anybody else that can pick up any of the points that Councillor Barker has raised, or if not, then I will try and get some response to your questions back to you, Councillor Barker, if that's okay. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hussain, you have indicated. Sorry, I missed you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I was just echoing Councillor Barker's question, because my understanding is also from Surrey County Council that there was nobody coming forward. The Woking Borough Council is now going to be responsible or showing an interest. Is there anything that we know from Woking side that is that true, and that is it likely to be a development on that site? And if there is, will it be incorporated as a youth facility as well?
Well, I mean, the site is still currently under the ownership of Surrey County Council, but I'm sure there are discussions going on between Surrey and Woking Borough Council. Douglas Spinks, is there anything that you can add to this? As far as I'm aware, Surrey County Council is still under ownership and is still devising how to move forward with that site.
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'm not aware of any current discussions.
Thank you. Lovely. I'm going to move it forward now. So we're going to go on to agenda item 7, which is petitions. We have 2 petitions received. One is to implement a shared pedestrian and cycle path on the remainder of the south side of the A245 Parvis Road between Byfleet Queenshead and West Byfleet Highfield Road. And that's from Mr. Keith Creswell, who I don't believe is here at the meeting. And then the other one is the Sutton Green traffic calming. Neither of the petitioners are planning to attend the meeting, but if any members wanted to comment on this, Councillor Foster, I think you've indicated in terms of, I believe, the Sutton Green petition. Is that correct?
Obviously, jumping ahead to the second petition, I think we need to note and thank the petitioners for this. It might sound, obviously the number seems low for Woking, but actually it's almost half of this little village. So it's clearly quite a very issue that the village is really concerned with. I suppose it's work in progress. We need to see what the speed surveys say. Obviously, if they say we can lower the speed limit, that's great, and hopefully we can come back to the committee for approval. If they say that the speed is just too high to lower the limit, I think clearly the joint committee needs to work out a way to try to improve safety in Sutton Green. So it's either one thing or it's another. So as I said, I think it's work in progress. Finally, I think it would be useful if officers could look at the extent of the highway in the village to try to see if we can follow what the petition is asking for in the second point, which is about sort of entry gates to try to slow traffic down. The big concern that you've got is you're driving a sort of wooden area, and then you suddenly turn up into a village, and you want to make people feel like it's a village at that point. So I think if officers could take that away as well, that would be really useful.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Councillor Anne-Marie, I jumped ahead to the Sutton Green petition only because I noted that Councillor Foster, you'd indicated. I will come back to you, Councillor Bouton, in regards to the other petition. But Councillor Anne-Marie Barker, you have noted you wanted to speak on the first petition. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. But I think Councillor Boot should probably go before me. I was on the first petition as well, and it's her ward.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Councillor Boot, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barker. Yeah, I just wanted to say, first of all, thank the petitioner, Mr. Cresswell, for bringing this to the committee tonight. I think this is a really important stretch of road where it would be great if we could get the cycle path finished. We've managed to get quite a lot of the cycle path installed along the A245 from the Broadoaks development at West Byfleet that was funded by Octagon, the developer. So there's just a small stretch of road left where this path now goes into no man's land, and it would be really great if we could just finish the job off. So it's not a huge task, but it would make a great difference to the many students and children that cycle along that road, so that they could do that safely, going to all of the schools in West Byfleet. And for obviously this is part of the main Surrey cycle route that comes through the Olympic route. So it would be really great if we could just finish that piece off. And I'd be willing to put part of my highways county budget towards it as well, if that helps. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Barker.
Thank you. Sorry, Chair, your voice is fading out a bit again. I didn't quite hear you there.
Right, I need to be close to the mic, I think.
Yeah, I think so. That's fine. I did get it. I just wanted to give some support for this route. I know over many years there have been requests for cycling routes along this area, and gradually over time the route has been built up. And I think it's important this final piece is put in place. It's such an important route and such an easy way to enable people to cycle, both the school children and anybody else, to get some traffic off the roads would be ideal. There's a number of points that are suggested here, and I don't know whether the ward or county councils have been told any more about this, but I'm just wondering, what are the definitive next steps? What's actually going to happen next? I just don't want to see this kicked off into the long grass, because there's no real certainty in the response here.
Thank you very much. Councillor Christie, I can see your hand up.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, we do have Octagon contractors on site at present who are actually been involved in putting in some of the pathway. Might it be possible for somebody to have a word with them? They've tended to be very accommodating. There's not much more to be done. Is it worthwhile? Because, as I say, they are good contractors. They've been very helpful. Could maybe Mr. Milne perhaps approach them?
Why don't we ask Mr. Milne? Mr. Milne, if you'd like to just pick up some of those points raised by members, that in regards to that petition, that would be helpful before I move the conversation along, please.
Thank you. I was just rereading some of the written response that we provided to this item. Certainly, it's always helpful where we can form continuous routes for cyclists. It's a very important part of the strategy. With regard to approaching contractors that are doing good work for development, it's not something we would normally do. We do have our own contractual obligations and processes that we have to follow, and we'd have to make sure that anything we did followed our procurement and fiscal rules for the county council. Not to say that something like that would be completely out of the question, but I think it's unlikely a developer would willingly commit to significant additional costs unless we were able to fund those items of work. And this evening, I don't have a figure in front of me for what the cost would be for completing this particular section of cycleway. So I think that's something we need to identify and perhaps look at. Members of the committee will be aware that in the next committee cycle, that is when we normally determine what our capital works programme is for the coming financial year, and based on the number of different things that have been proposed this evening, of course there is opportunity to revisit all of those and determine which ones the committee would like to fund, subject of course to funding being available. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I think that's helpful. I think if we can pick that up in the next committee cycle in terms of funding, then I think that'd be helpful. Councillor Foster, you seem to be indicating that you'd like to say something.
I couldn't hear what you said at first,
okay.
Which was, so I don't know what you're proposing, Chairman.
No, I was actually still referring to the first petition and just saying to Andrew that it would be helpful to pick that up when we go through the next funding cycle of the Joint Committee in terms of petition 1. I didn't make any comment for your petition. Was there something else you wanted to add in terms of your petition before I move along?
No, I please just be close to your microphone because I don't know what we're missing.
Okay, okay, I will do. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna move now to agenda item 8, if that's okay, for everybody. So which is Horsell 20-mile/hour speed limit. I'm gonna just give over to Andrew just to introduce the report. We obviously haven't got Councillor Kemp here, who is the division member, but I think Councillor Honeywicks is here just to speak on this particular item. So after Andrew, I'm going to refer it to Councillor Honeywicks. So Andrew, if you just wanted to do a brief intro on this one, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. The report before committee this evening is for a decision to enable us to proceed with the introduction of a 20-mile/hour speed limit in this section of Horsell. Members of the committee will be aware that previously we had a discussion about the fact that the original proposal has proposed to be extended to include a number of side roads, simply to make it a more sensible arrangement. It's one of these ones where we're very pleased to be able to approach the committee and ask for this permission and actually do something that's positive and supports the local community on the network in Horsell. So I don't really have any further comments on this, Madam Chairman, but I would be very pleased if the committee would grant their approval to enable us to proceed with the scheme.
Thank you very much. Beryl, Ward Councillor, if you wanted to speak before I get other committee members to speak on it, please.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. Yes, I think this is something that certainly Councillor Kemp, as a county councillor in this area, has been working on. I've been working alongside him, and I think the really important part is that it's a relatively short piece of road, but it's got 2 churches and 3 schools within 100, 200 yards. And it's a busy area, obviously, with the shopping as well, the shopping area of Horsell. And so it was those with the shops and the churches and the schools, lots of problem with speeding. And we had the first part of the jigsaw last year when it was kindly granted that we should have a 20-mile/hour zone at the top of the hill of Church Hill, right by the church opposite the village school. And with taking away all the lines there and making it a narrow road, it has actually helped reduce speed during that bit. But now we want to bring it down, and this is what this particular item proposes, down through the village and to the very busy junction at the other end with Meadway Drive and Ormond Road to the High Street, where we have a lot of children at the drop-off and also at the pick-up at the end of the day. So this, I think, is just so welcomed, and it's been a long time coming, and we're very grateful, actually, to Highways and all the work that's been done with Kevin and Andrew and the team to actually get this to this juncture. So it's something that I think will be really welcome, and obviously makes sense that we take in some of the side roads that at the moment would be left high and dry so that you could speed along a little tiny cul-de-sac at 30 miles an hour, because it hadn't been brought under this umbrella. So I want to thank Councillor Kemp. I'm sorry he's not here to actually, I spoke with him later this afternoon, so he's fine. He's happy for me to, to comment on this. But it's been a long time coming, and we're really thrilled that it is actually now in your remit to actually just approve this and send it forward. So thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor High-Wicks. I think, Councillor Foster, you indicated to speak on this as well, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I obviously just to echo those words, I think this is a really good scheme. We've said it before. I'm pleased that we're extending it. That's something I mentioned in March, that it seemed quite bizarre just to have such a small 20-mile-an-hour area in Horsell. To be honest, I would like it extended more across more of the village, but I do understand the officer's point by doing that, by extending it, you would delay the whole scheme. So actually, I think letting this scheme go ahead now is really sensible. And I'm going to say a but. Can we get some speed surveys done for other areas in the village, particularly towards Woking High School, but other areas as well, so that we can assess whether the council can put a 20-mile-an-hour limit on those roads? Like I've done in Sutton Green, the county councillor can fund speed limit surveys. Obviously, I don't know what Colin has spent his money on at the moment, if we're able to spend that for him because of his illness.
Excuse me, Chairman, can I just come back?
Yes, go ahead. Yep, please do.
I'm sure Councillor Kemp wouldn't want us to spend his money on that willy-nilly, Councillor Forster, but I would say that over the last 3 or 4 years, there's been some very clever, thanks to Peter Wells and his team, there's been some very clever double yellow lines around outside the high school on a chicane system that actually makes it impossible to go more than about 20 miles around there, because there are cars parked either side of the road most of the day, which prevents people doing any speeding at all. So I think, Councillor Kemp is fully aware. We're aware when people raise this in our emails. But I think we'll leave it to Councillor Kemp to decide where it goes. Thank you.
I think that's sensible. Thank you, Councillor Hannywicks. I have Saj, Councillor Hussain. You've indicated to speak on this, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I did. I very welcome this introduction in Horsell. I think this is fantastic news, and hopefully that, going forward from this, like Councillor Foster said, that we can use this as an example and do it in other villages like Nafville, for example. I've been crying out to do some kind of service on there. We have a Chiltern Road, 2 schools there. Traffic is a problem. Speeding is a problem. And I know there was an initiative by Surrey County Council for advisory 20-mile signs. Is this something that maybe Andrew can help me on this? Would that be also something that we can ask for? Well, this is a fantastic initiative in Horsell, and I congratulate Councillor Kemp and also Councillor Hunwick for their hard work on this, and the officers. But please, is there any way that we can take this further into our, whole of Woking area, and look at some of the speeding problems that we have? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Amory Barker.
Thank you, Chair. I'll join my colleagues in welcoming this. It's great to see that Surrey have finally caught on to 20-mile-an-hour zones and the benefits they can bring. Those with long memories might recall that the proposal to do something very similar were drawn up about 10 years ago by a former Horsell County Councillor, Councillor Duran, and they were dropped at the time because they were deemed to be too expensive, and Surrey really wasn't very keen on 20-mile-an-hour zones at the time, so it didn't get very far. I must admit, when I first looked, I thought it was a bit illogical not to cover all of the schools, but looking carefully at the plans, I can see exactly what the intention is, and that does make perfect sense. But I'd very much like to see this as a sort of phase 1, get an opportunity to see how this works out. And then I think a phase 2 could go down the rest of Meadway Drive, picking up the other roads that come off, there's a number of roads off there, and potentially then looking at the other side of the High Street in Horsell, with areas like Walden's Park Road, Berry Lane, and those types of things. I think that would be a good way to look forward, and then perhaps extend that model to other areas as well.
Thank you. Councillor Ben Krasker, you're next.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Kemp called me just before the meeting, and asked if I could ask your indulgence for him to propose in his absence a small change. Now, looking at the map, I'm not clear whether it's part of this particular item.
What?
Councillor Carrasco, I think you are, this is later on in the agenda item. It's not under this one.
Is it under the parking one?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Apologies in that case. I'll do it then.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, just pick that up later. Andrew, was there anything you wanted to comment back in terms of some of the points that members raised?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, by the sound of it, you all want the whole of Woking as a 20 mile per hour.
Yeah.
And I think our present speed setting policy obviously wouldn't permit that. What I would just highlight is the fact that we have a speed management plan for the borough, where we work collaboratively with road safety colleagues and Surrey Police. And this is the mechanism that we normally use to target and identify locations in the borough where speeding is a concern, particularly where it's coupled with personal injury accidents. And we use this to try and focus both the police enforcement resource to tackle excess speeds, and also use it to inform, what proposals we put forward to the committee for consideration for speed limit changes. That really is the mechanism that we need to go through if we're looking at, other proposals for speed limit changes. And we do have to try and ensure that the focus remains on those locations where we already have identified the fact that we've got the highest issues with speed and also personal injury accidents. Not to say that other areas don't merit looking at, but we do have to try and make sure that we are prioritising those requests because we get so many of them, just to make sure that we're getting the best value for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. So the agenda item is on the screen with the points for agreement. Are those agreed? I can't hear it, but I assume that's agreed. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to now move along to agenda item 9, unless there's... Councillor Whitehand, you have indicated, is it on agenda item 8 or 9?
On 8, and I'm really sorry, it was just that following on from what Andrew Milne was saying about packing the case together, and following on from what Councillor Hussain was, that we did have a fatality in Knapp Hill about 18 months ago. A small boy coming out of school was knocked over and killed. So if, I don't wish to get into my area is more important than your area, but I think if you're looking at cases, maybe, and we've always been told unless there's a fatality that you're not going to take it on board. But I think that if we could be considered, I think that needs to be put into the basket. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
This is something I really do feel needs to be said in this meeting, bearing in mind that comment. It most certainly is not the case that somebody has to die before Surrey County Council, as Highway Authority, looks at road safety issues and seeks to do anything positive for residents. We hear that sort of message being shared quite regularly. It's not correct. Clearly, where we have examples on the network where people have died already, or there have been a cluster of personal injury accidents, you can understand why those locations must be prioritised in comparison to other locations where there haven't been any personal injury accidents. And it's also very, very important that when we do reference fatalities that have taken place on the network, we recognise the fact that sometimes those fatalities could not have been prevented, whether we change the speed limit, introduce physical measures or anything like that. Sometimes, unfortunately, tragic events do occur and that they are completely outside of anyone's control to prevent. That's one of the reasons why we work very, very closely with Surrey Police, and we are very, very sensitive to the findings of their investigations and reports in terms of how we then respond to them as a highway authority. So I hope that provides some assurance to everybody.
Thank you. I think it does, and it's definitely worth saying and worth for all of us councillors to note. I think if there are any areas within your division, I think it's for division councillors to take those forward, just as Councillor Kemp has done in his area. So please seek to do those through the normal channels. I think it's probably the best course of action. But I'm digressing because we have actually moved on to agenda item 9, so I'm definitely going to move along, which is the proposed pedestrianisation of Chobham Road and Commercial Way. And I'm going to hand over to Tony Otterson to introduce and summarise this report just briefly, please. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Good, that's good. I don't know if it might be beneficial to show the plan. Is it possible I could share my screen? Is that okay? It should.
Yes, that's absolutely fine. Please do so.
Hopefully everyone can see that. What this is, it's the proposal to pedestrianise the final section, if you like, Commercial Way and Chobham Road being put forward by Woking Borough Council. What that will entail is providing an entry control from Chertsey Road. Now, the main aims of this proposal is to improve pedestrian access to the town centre, but also to provide a high quality urban environment as part of the sort of wider improvements that have been taking place within the working town. There is currently a restriction TRO in this section of road, as you can see on the screen, from Chobham Road round into the initial section of Commercial Way, which would normally run Monday to Saturday between 10:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. However, it hasn't been enforced for a number of years, so it's been open access for probably around about 5 or 6 years plus. But the proposal is to provide a continuous pedestrianisation on this section of the road, and access will be controlled from the junction from Chertsey Road, and in controlling access, there'll be drop bollards and an intercom system and a keypad entry system. Now, access will obviously be allowed for anyone residential but has access rights over those sections of the affected highway, servicing for local businesses. But in this case, also, it proposed to allow disabled drivers to register and have access to this section of the highway. The reason being, obviously, it's convenient for the town centre. Trying to find replacement disabled parking just outside the zone is very difficult because of the demands on servicing along Chertsey Road, and therefore, although it's a bit of a task, it's going to be beneficial for disabled drivers to be allowed access. They'll have to register, and then they would be allowed access into that area there. The current arrangements along that section of Chobham Road and Commercial Way allow for 10 disabled parking spaces. The introduction of the barrier system, which isn't going to be quite as shown in this plan, which is more of a schematic plan. It'll be further along, parallel to the back edge of number 26 Chertsey Road, in that sort of location there, will mean the loss of 2 disabled parking spaces. So the disabled parking spaces available in that section of road will reduce from 10 down to 8. Basically, the next step, obviously, following this committee, its work is intent to advertise the TRO, and in doing so, that will be a public consultation period, statutory consultation period, which will invite commentary from concerned parties. Should those responses be positive, then the sort of timescale you're talking about for this proposal is something like early part of the new year, sort of January, February time. Should it raise objections? Then potentially, if those objections are strong enough, it would be judged that it may have to go to appeal and use the appeal system to see if it can still be implemented. And I think that's the basics of the scheme. I don't know if anyone's got any questions.
Thank you very much, Tony. That's very helpful. Thank you. And just to get that visual is extremely helpful. So, Councillor Aziz, you have indicated to speak on this item.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It looks quite a positive move. I'm definitely supportive of it. Something I think is needed. That part is very, very busy part of the town, and yeah, I had a concern about the disabled parking bay. So that's good news. They've been replaced. Sorry, I think. Oh, yeah, that's good news. They will be replaced. Just want to know, is of course, the businesses that probably have some parking, so hopefully they will have access to the bollards, or and the time scale maybe at a certain time of the day we will have raised bollard, or it will be all the time. Something about the timing on these bollards.
Okay. Thank you. I'm just going to take a couple more questions, Jenny, and then I'll come back to you if that's okay. There's two other speakers on this. Councillor Anne-Marie Barker, you wanted to raise a point? Where are you? There you are. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Sorry for the slow response there. Yeah, I think this is welcome as clearing up one of the anomalies in what is a largely pedestrian-friendly town centre. I just wanted to point out, I think there might be a slight typo in 1.2, where it talks about vehicles being controlled from Christchurch Way. I think that's been copied from the next paper, so perhaps if that could just be confirmed, or else I'm missing something about the plans. My question really is around whether the businesses have been consulted about this, because I know there were plans to enforce these barriers quite strongly a number of years ago, and at that time I think no one was going to be allowed in between certain hours. There are a number of businesses along there that have parking. There's actually a car park behind where the restaurants, a couple of restaurants are along there, and the estate agents on the left-hand side as you come into the road, sort of backing towards Chertsey Road. So I was wondering whether they've been consulted, and also with the changes for disabled parking, although some spaces will be re-provided, have local disability groups being consulted about this, because obviously it's a bit more difficult to have to register rather than just being able to turn up and use the parking spaces.
Thank you. And last is Councillor Hussain. You have a question before I go to Tony.
Thank you, Chairman. Mine is a simple one. I know that service vehicles are going to be allowed in, but what about the taxi drivers and the delivery drivers? Because there's quite a number of restaurants that are doing takeaway foods now. So will be allowed in and out just on a press of button, or will they have to be registered?
Thank you. Tony, if you could just pick up some of those, that'd be helpful before we conclude this.
Yeah, the points relating to consultation, I know that some consultation has happened between Woking and accessibility groups, but I can't tell you to what degree. I haven't got the information in front of me. I mean, that said, the consultation process with the TRO will be such that letters will be dropped to local businesses and all concerned groups, which include the access group in general. So, it's an issue that I know has been addressed. I don't know how fully at this stage, but because I haven't got the information to hand. But the consultation process isn't complete. It's not a done deal, and the consultation will be taken forward on the basis of affected parties will be written to and allowed to comment on the scheme regardless. The point that I think there's a couple of points which are almost related regarding access. I mean, the access to the area, it's servicing and parking. So if a local business or a residential dwelling within that affected area has access to parking space, that will be maintained, and they will be either have an entry code or their number registration will be registered, so they'll be allowed access at any time of the day. Similarly, when it comes to the pickup and drop-offs of on smaller deliveries, if you like, and the restaurant deliveries, again, if it's sort of an organised situation, as in like Just Eat, these sorts of situations, that would be allowed access, but it wouldn't necessarily allow someone to come into the area to pick up a takeaway independently. But so basically, all service access will be covered by the access restrictions. So there'd be allowed access for general service and general pickup and deliveries, but not necessarily for a private person to come in and pick up a takeaway.
Thank you very much, Tony. Thank you. So is the committee agreed to begin the statutory consultation period? I assume agreed. Thank you. So I'm going to go on to agenda item 9, which again is the proposed pedestrianisation of Chobham Road and Commercial Way. Tony, do you want to just do a brief intro on that before members' comments, please?
Is it possible I share my screen again and go on to the next slide, if that's okay?
Thank you very much.
Hopefully everyone can see that. Yes, I mean, this is the pedestrianisation of Church Street East between Chobham Road and the town square and the town gate, basically, to the west. Again, it's a very similar proposal to the previous one. It's a case of trying to improve pedestrian access to the area and improve the quality of the urban environment in this location. The access controls will be provided on Christchurch Way, the section of the loop road, if you like, which is made up of Chobham Road and Christchurch Way will become two-way, and there'll be an entry barrier control in this location here, and it will be controlled in much the same way as the previous proposal. In addition, there'll be emergency bollards provided at the initial section of Church Street East as it meets Chobham Road, and those will be permanently in the up position unless there's a failure of these barrier system or there's an emergency vehicle which needs direct access to this end of the scheme of the developed area. Turning provision is provided by West Street in this location here, which is actually part of the public highway. And the entry control system would be continuous 24/7 in a similar way to mentioned on Commercial Road, Chobham Road. However, in this location, this does involve the loss of disabled parking spaces in this area. But there's a re-provision as part of the zonal changes that were put forward at the committee in January that this section of Chobham Road on the western side of the road there, these were going to be converted into disabled parking spaces. However, it does produce a net loss. I believe it's there's currently 9 in the affected area, and there's only space to re-provide 6 in this location. On that basis, there will be a net loss of 3 disabled parking spaces in the area. Access again will be open to any residential development in there, any business in there that has parking or street parking. Obviously, there's a church in that location as well, so there'll be services, weddings, these sorts of things, and obviously a select list of people who are attending these would be allowed access. I think that covers the main points. If anyone's got any questions.
Thank you very much, Tony. I have 2 speakers who want to comment on this. First is Councillor Ashall.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'll be as quick as I can. I'm not terribly keen on this, if I'm completely honest. It doesn't really matter because the decision has already kind of been made in the previous report, and what we're doing now really is noting the details. I think it's a shame that we didn't have feedback from Surrey Police when we made the decision, because I do share the concerns they have about the use of a turning head. Essentially what we have at the moment, bit of an issue where people are dropping people off in the town square and they are using various bits of various roads to do that, turn around and get back out again in order to avoid having to pay for parking and things like this. What this does is essentially push that problem somewhere else, and I think the whole loop will turn into a series of cars going in, dropping, turning around and coming back out again. So I think the practicalities of it aren't wonderful, but I guess we are where we are with it. I wonder if we could just, I know that there is a comment made about in the report about what has gone into the design in order to stop that, but could we just have some further detail on why officers think that this is actually going to be a sensible way to do it rather than what I've just described? Thanks.
Thank you. Tony, did you want to pick this up or shall I go to the other speakers first?
I can pick this up if you like.
Yes, please do.
I think the point was being made that it's a turning situation which is being pushed from the town gate area to a section to just run. I'm not sure I entirely got the point. I think it was a case of the turning arrangement for people drop off is being changed from a location by Towngate and being pushed around the corner to the northeast. If that's the case, I do understand the point being made. However, where it is currently, there's a number of businesses locally, and there's a lot more pedestrian activity, and it does lead, because of the nature of the location being a dead end in that situation, it does end up with people double parking, etc. And you get a cluster of vehicles around the turning head and near the town gate. The situation we're proposing currently will potentially result in similar situations when it comes to demand. However, because there's a requirement to keep access to the gate, it is felt that it is less likely for people to be down there double parking. And in this situation, also the provision of a side road allows for full turning rather than people doing a multi-point turn along a section of road down by the town gate near the pedestrian near the bank. So I don't know if that's made that clear. But basically, it is going to be there is a potential for a similar situation to take place. However, the circumstances in the revised position should it reduce the amount of double parking in the area, and it would mean that those movements will take place in a location where there is a better facility for turning.
Okay, thank you, Tony. I'm going to go to the next speaker now, Councillor Aziz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I have a similar concern like Councillor Ashfield made on this point, at this side of these proposed barriers. Bear in mind, this loop is being made two-way now, and it's one of the very, very busy spot compared to the other one. The lot of pickups and drops off all the time, and the turning is look like it's quite tight. We got both sides, they're like a privately owned buildings. So I have a concern on that. We should be, I'm not sure what stage we are now, but also losing a lot of disabled space. These disabled bays are very, very prime location, or very, very easy accessible for people with severe disabilities for them, or also some elderly people will get picked up. But replacing these ones, I will be very. I just want to know or reassure us that where we're going to replace these very conveniently located disabled bays for the resident. It's a net loss, and not only net loss for the disabled bays, but if you look for the both spots, they are a very prime location, very, very accessible location for disabled people. So we must replace them somehow.
Thank you, Councillor Anne-Marie Barker. If you could just make your points, if there's no repetition for the other points, then please do make them.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I can see what's being sought to be achieved here, but I think with the plans on Christchurch Way that we're actually making the situation for pedestrians worse there. That road doesn't function too badly at the moment as a one-way road, but it's been two-way recently because of the work that was going on to do the repaving. And I've seen all sorts of silly things going on there, and people turning around in the road, which just replicates the problem situation that you have at the end of Chobham Road near the cash machine. I'm just going to echo, just to add strength to the point that Councillor Aziz has made, which is that a concern about the loss of 3 disabled parking spaces. Where are they going to be re-provided? There is a need, I think, for people who just want to drop somebody off. Why can't you just drop somebody off in the town centre without having to queue to get into a car park or have to pay to go in somewhere? There should be that facility. And similarly, people may well want to access a cash machine. They're few and far between nowadays. Most of our village centres don't have cash machines in them. We're quite lucky in Guildford Park, I think, to have one in the middle of the shopping centre there by the Waitrose with a large car park, but many other areas don't have them, particularly, I think, going over to that more easterly side of the borough where I think people would use this space. So maybe there's action needed, but I'm not sure this is the right thing. I'd really like to think about suggesting a second recommend here, which is recognising the need for that drop-off facility to ask officers to explore suitable locations for drop-off, pick-up and short trips somewhere near to the town centre, because I think that is obviously a need. It happens at this location, it happens at the previous location we discussed in Chertsey Road. So I think that should be looked into.
Thank you. Councillor Hussain, lastly.
My concern, Chairman, is also on loss of disabled parking. So it's been covered.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so others. Tony, did you want to just pick up some of those points? I know the report is not for modification. It's for noting rather than any decision making. But please do go ahead and comment.
No problem. I think the first point about disabled parking is that the disabled reprovision is on Chobham Road, which is probably about 50 metre further distance than the average of those provided currently. So that there is an increase in distance, but it's not it's not been removed entirely, and it's in the same area effectively. But you're right, there is a loss of 3 disabled parking spaces. I'm sure that's something that will come out during the consultation process. Again, this will be subject to the same statutory consultation, and although I do believe some consultation has been taking place between Woking and Access Group in this location for this scheme. There was a point made about drop-off, and you're right. There is a requirement for drop-off. It's not reasonable to allow someone to just drop off. I mean, the reason a drop-off location is best provided in a location where it's either a through route, a sleepy through route, ideally. But at the end of a cul-de-sac, it means that you get people without provision of a decent turning provision. You have a situation where people are double parked and others are struggling to get out and past. You're right as well. I mean, the councillor who mentioned the fact that it's become two-way for about a year. That was to facilitate the resurfacing work that was taking place down there. And if you look at it now, it's almost like a halfway house situation because of the sections that have been closed. But it's felt that once the provision is finalised, if you like, and the turning head is obviously within clear view of the location of the barriers, that people will behave differently to what they do now. What's happening now is a traffic management issue, and it's a measure which, if you like, which is halfway between the previous situation and the proposed.
Thank you very much. I think I've got Jeff McManus. You wanted to comment on this before we conclude?
Yeah, I just wanted to say quickly, I have been having some discussions with the access groups, and certainly disabled bays, I think they're due to go in next week, or so the relocated disabled bays, because certainly we've been at a net loss for a little time. So they go in next week. We are losing parking spaces in the town overall. Certainly the ambition to get more pedestrianised areas is a real one. And that conversation with the disabled groups is a continuing conversation. So we very much recognise the issue.
Thank you. Anne-Marie, you've indicated to speak again. Is it?
It was just a very brief question, if I may.
Of course, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
Will Christchurch Way isn't currently paved in the same way as Church Street East. Is the intention to also pave that?
Yeah, I can answer that. But yeah, no, Christchurch, with the loop and Christchurch Way through to Chobham Road is been resurfaced. There was a need down there because there were structural faults within the road. But in itself, that section of road is not proposed currently to be block paved in a similar way to Church Street East or other sections of the town centre.
Okay, thank you very much. So is the report noted by the committee, please? Thank you. Agreed. So I'm going to move along now to agenda item 11, which is the parking review report, which I'm sure you've had a look at in terms of your own divisions. Peter, did you want to briefly introduce the report? And then I can request members if they've got any points to raise. But please, members, I would ask, we've got a really hefty agenda, so if you can make your points succinct and not too much repetition if possible, please. Peter, if you want to start.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chairman. This is the report of recommendations for approval to advertise the 2020 Working Parking Review, which was carried out in unusual circumstances this year. I was able to undertake site assessments during September but I had to do all the work on my own. Wasn't able to undertake usual site meetings with councillors. Wasn't able to really meet with interested residents or other parties. Also, there was no parking task group held this year. And I'd just like to say, Mr. Colin usually has a massive input into this, and I missed working with him this time around. So the majority of requests were received prior to March. Since then, there hasn't been that many requests came in for the rest of the year. And also since March, on-street parking patterns and the number of vehicles parking on street has also changed quite significantly. So compared to previous years, the number of requests received overall is quite low. However, we are recommending progressing about 50% of all the requests that were received and that I assessed. So the parking review is smaller this year. I was also advised to make it smaller as finance might not be so readily available. And then looking forward, there are concerns around advertising and possible implementation. And so if public buildings are closed, advertising is not so easy, making it available for the public to view. And then if I or a contractor later on in the process has to self-isolate, it might be a delay in actually installing it. So it was considered to have a smaller number of schemes might be more practical to complete installation in a reasonable time frame for this particular review. There's one location I'd like to add, bring to the table. That's Hillside in the Woking South Division, where we'd like to install some additional double yellow lines that were advertised previously, but were not progressed. The advertising period for those is now expired, so I'd like to re-advertise them again as part of this parking review. Another thing I'd like to add is from earlier on this evening, our discussion about Eve Road and Arnold Road. If it does turn out that there are some double yellow lines we could perhaps remove, obviously they're not included in this report, but could I get authority from Ben Carrasco and you, Aisha, as the chairman, to take out some double yellow lines if we need to as part of that scheme? And that's one question I have. Also included in this review are 5 locations identified for the possible introduction of electric vehicle on-street charging points around the borough. A set of these drawings is included in the annex. These locations have been identified by the Transport Strategy team, and I believe are the first of many that they would like to introduce across the borough over the coming years. If anyone's got any questions about these, I can pass them on to Steve Howard, who's the Transport Strategy Project Manager overseeing this project. I'm not really able to answer that many questions about this project myself, so I can obtain answers for you. It is recommended that if everything is approved this evening, we intend to formally advertise these proposals January, February of next year, and then all being well, we hopefully install the schemes during the spring and the summer of 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter, and thank you very much for your work, considering the conditions that you've had to work in. So first I'm going to just go to Amanda Booth, who's indicated to speak on an item in her division, I guess.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Actually, I just wanted to say a thank you to Peter for doing such a great job in such challenging circumstances. I'm very happy with all the proposals for the bifleets. We've discussed them at length, but thank you, Peter. I think you've done a great job.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. And then I've got Councillor Aziz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I would also like to join Amanda to... Sorry, Madam Chair. So I also join Amanda to say thank you to Peter, also Jeff. He kindly organised a couple of consultations, Zoom consultation meetings in a very busy schedule with the resident to sort out especially this issue on Even Arden Road. I don't want to repeat the points we already made earlier. Quite a few things been cleared. Quite a few things been cleared, but I will also emphasise on if there's any potential to remove, safe to remove some of these double yellow lines and provide additional spaces. So I will support that. Hopefully Ben and will support that one as well. The one more thing I just want to clarify, maybe Jeff or Peter can clarify about these two car parks. You know, that would be ideal if we didn't force in first place and leave those car parks as it is, and then it will make the situation worse. So even for temporarily, until you decide what the borough do with the car parks, but if we include in a CPZ, that will be helpful. They will not only provide extra parking spaces to residents, but also we will not have this, the situation where people dumping cars and parking and going or leaving their cars for months and months. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beryl, Honey Weeks, did you want to comment on this briefly, if you could? Councillor Honey Weeks.
Briefly. Peter, can I say a huge thank you? You and I had, I was sort of stepping in for Councillor Kemp. It was really appreciated. So thank you very much indeed for all the hard work you've done over that, particularly in the Horsell area. Really appreciate that. And I think it's at this point that I think, because I talked to Councillor Kemp this afternoon, that Councillor Carrasco just would like to ask something. But
yes, of course. Yep. Yes, I have him as the next speaker. Councillor Carrasco, please. I think you have a point to raise on this one.
Thank you, Chairman. On two separate areas. On the Eve Arnold Road, for Peter Wells's benefit, I think I know the area that they are talking about. It's relatively minor. It should not impact costs significantly. For the small amount of costs, I'm happy to subsidize that from the county highways budget. On the Horsell issue, this is a request from Colin Kemp, asking and apologizing for not being able to do this himself in advance. Could we authorize an incremental, roughly 6 feet of double yellow adjacent to existing double yellow on Thornish Road? I believe it's a relatively small amount, therefore no significant cost implication. And secondly, this is pretty uncontroversial. The residents are looking forward to it. So hopefully there should be no issues holding it back. If that could be amended, that would be most helpful.
Okay, is there some kind of a sketch or something you can...
He said if you get in touch with him after, or he gets in touch with you after, he would just like it authorized subject to that discussion.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Carrasco. Peter, was there anything you wanted to add before we agree these?
Just clarify, Eve Road and Arnold Road, if there's some additional yellow line that we feel can be removed safely, then obviously I need the approval, your approval from Ben and yourself, Chairman, to do that rather than any financial situation. We just need your approval that you've agreed for us to do that.
Yes. Ben, is that something that you're happy with? If you're happy with it, then as Chairman,
I'm with Parking's recommendation.
Okay. In which case, I'm happy to agree that as well, Peter.
Okay, thank you.
If there's no other additions to this parking review, can we please indicate that we agree with it? What's on the screen? Yes.
Just to highlight that there was a very slight supplemental to include Hillside in that decision, and I've added that to the agreement for members.
Yes, as mentioned by Peter, and I think both I as ward councillor and Councillor Forster as division councillor are aware of this and have been in contact with residents regarding this. So yes, that's absolutely fine. Thank you, Nikki. So these are agreed, which moves us along to agenda item 12. So we're almost at 8 o'clock. What I'm suggesting is that we just take a 5-minute break. We've still got quite a few agenda items to go through, but I think we've been sitting for 2 hours straight. So I think if I give everybody a 5-minute break and then come back at 8:05, that would be really good. Is that okay? Thank you, everybody. See you in 5 minutes. Thank you. Everybody. I think members will join us in a few minutes, but I'll start so that we can progress on with the agenda. So we are now on agenda item 12, which is the Community Safety Annual Report. We have Camilla Edmondson, sorry, Camilla, the Community Safety Manager, who will introduce the report, and we have a warm welcome to David Bentley, who is the Surrey Police Commander, who is also in attendance. So a very warm welcome to you both. Camilla, do you want to just do a brief intro to the report before members? I ask members for any questions. Thank you, Camilla.
Thank you very much. So this is our usual annual report, obviously a bit later in the year than we would normally be responding due to the usual concerns around COVID that cancelled the summer meeting. It was really just to highlight that, it's quite a significant report, but it highlights our statutory responsibilities and the key priorities we've been working on. We've got some case studies there which we provided to illustrate the problem solving around the work we do with the Joint Action Group, which looks at antisocial behaviour on a geographic or crime type, and the CHARM, the Community Harm and Risk Management Meeting, which looks at individual families having a negative effect on the community and supporting victims. So that should give you a feel for what we do in terms of our problem solving around both the geographic and people side of the community. Domestic abuse is one of our key priorities, and that's to tackle and support survivors. So it's a high volume crime for police to deal with, but it's often unseen by the public. It's one of those things that I think we find we spend a lot of time on. We've done some excellent awareness raising campaigns this last year. We had the Domestic Abuse Awareness Week in June. That was obviously June 2019, which seems a bit odd to be talking about that now. But that was really good. And then we supported the Pride event in August and the White Ribbon in November and December. And we provided some quite significant information on those campaigns in the different annex documents to the report. Woking Street Angels celebrated their 9th year of operating, and they're still providing really good help and support to those most vulnerable in the town centre at the weekends. And this next year, in February of 2021, they'll be celebrating their 10th anniversary. So we'll be looking to know how we might celebrate that with them. In terms of education, we do quite a few things with young people. There's life education centres. We go into all our primary schools and deliver social skills and attitudes to support them to create a positive, healthy lifestyle. It helps with peer pressure and an understanding of what they're doing with their bodies. Junior Citizen is the year 6 from primary schools we invite to Woking Football Club each year, and we would normally have 12 to 1300 youngsters. Unfortunately, this March we started our Junior Citizen. It was all planning and going ahead well, but it was at the beginning of March, so you can guess what happened. A week in, we sadly had to cancel it. The only good thing is we had luckily managed to fund some workbooks. So although only just over 500 of the young people made it to the Woking Football Club for the live event, all 1,325 got their workbooks delivered to the local schools for them to work through with their teachers. So not ideal, but better, than if we had nothing to support them with. The Women's Support Centre continues to deliver their help and support to the most vulnerable women across Surrey. It's those with complex needs, such as domestic abuse, mental health, substance misuse, debt and housing issues. And there's some lovely quotes in the report from the women who've been helped and support, as well as some good case studies that give you a feel for what help is offered and what the outcomes are. So the Women's Sports Centre, we also do the Arch Awards, and this has been running for 10 years now annually. It's a real celebration of women's ability and creativity. We have a launch each year, so I sort of feel I'm reporting on 2 years now, because we had the 2019 one, which went really well, and then had a roving exhibition around the county. This year, obviously, because of the challenges, although we did do the launch in October, like so many things these days, it was a virtual one on Zoom. And we had actually got the exhibition in the light box, and you could have gone and seen it until obviously we went into lockdown. So thankfully, we actually did something quite creative this year, and we have a virtual gallery, and you can still see that if you go to the Lightbox website and click on the link. So sadly, none of us can go and see it now because it's due to finish at the end of November, and of course we'll be still in lockdown at that stage. But if you'd like to go and have a look, I can really recommend it, and you'll then be able to vote for your favourite, which could be awarded a prize in the People's Choice. So that just highlights some of the key things we've been doing over that year 1920, and comment on a few things this year. But obviously the challenges currently are in how we respond collectively, locally, under the COVID restrictions. But we're obviously working closely with not just the police and the Inspector Dave Bentley, who's with us tonight, but also our other partner agencies. So I was just going to open it up to questions now, if that's all right, Chairman.
Thank you so much, Camilla. Thank you. Yeah, I think we've got a couple of speakers, but no, your report was very good. A lot of points raised in there, but were very important. So first I've got Councillor Forster.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Camilla, for sort of outlining the community safety initiatives over the last year. I think that's really good. However, it's difficult not to mention the, to be honest, appalling increase in crime figures that's contained in the report. Obviously, the least worst figure is the fact that hate crime's up by 21%, but then there's some other, almost worse crimes that are up even higher. So the crime figures just seem awful in this report. I know it's something that I raise at the police panel as Woking's representative, but I suppose I wanted to ask Camilla if those increasing crime figures are huge. Do you think you could comment on that and what's being done to address it? I think it would be useful if the council, probably the borough council, asked the new neighbourhood inspector or the relatively new neighbourhood inspector to attend a meeting with us. So I know we've had a private briefing with him previously. Obviously, it'll have to be remote, but I think that would be useful for ward councillors to raise those concerns. Obviously, I appreciate that we're all inside quite a lot on Zoom meetings, but actually those crime figures are awful reading for many vulnerable members of our community. So it would be useful if we could ask, I suppose, full council to bring the neighbourhood inspector in, and then Camilla, what are your thoughts on those crime figures?
Are you referring to crime figures in the report? Because if so, the hate crime showing there is down by 2.2%, not up by 20% as you mentioned. So I'm just unsure which figures you're looking at.
Okay, sorry, that might be a Surrey-wide figure rather than a Woking figure.
Yes.
But,
okay, we're only looking at Woking.
Yeah, but obviously I'm just concerned about the crime figures, and let's be general rather than delve into one crime. But yeah, obviously what's being done to address that?
Lovely. Thank you, Councillor Foster. I'm just going to bring in Camilla. I'll come back to you if you need to comment. David Bentley, you indicated you wanted to speak, so
yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if that's okay. So first,
of course.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for having me. Just to allay some of the concerns around those crime figures that were just previously mentioned, there hasn't been that increase within Woking, certainly not in hate crime. Most recent figures we actually see have reduced significantly. So if you look overall year-to-year figures, we've seen a 6% reduction in hate crime. And more importantly, if you look at October's figures for hate crime in Woking, 2019 to October 2020, we've seen a significant decrease of over 40% in hate crime, which is fantastic. Overall in crime in Woking, and I know we're in a very different position than we are because of COVID, we have seen a decrease, I think of around between 12 and 13% of overall crime is probably the most recent. So in Woking in general, we've seen a significant decrease in a whole range of crime types, which include residential burglaries, hate crime, and other associated offences, thefts, including criminal damage as well as crime types. So we've seen a significant decrease. A lot of that is to the challenges around COVID and more people being in and at home. But I'm really pleased with some of the figures that are coming out from the work that Camilla's been doing prior to my arrival with my predecessor.
Thank you, Dave. Bentley. Camilla, did you want to add anything?
It's fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to move along to Anne-Marie Barker.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thanks again, Camilla, for the report. It's great to see just how much is being done or would normally happen. Such a shame that we've lost such a chunk of it this year. I think particularly the young people missing out on the sort of physical activity of the excuse me, young citizen is a real shame. I wonder if I could just pick up a couple of points. Page 103, I note that vehicle crime is one crime that does seem to be up this year, and I wondered what was covered in that generic vehicle crime category, and if the police inspector knew why that was up. And then I think the big concern many people have been worried about with lockdown is the domestic abuse and the increasing number of referrals in that area. I wondered if Camilla felt is that something we can cope with? Are the various services actually managing that? Are we a long way behind on kind of referrals and dealing with that? Just how are we doing really in this COVID situation, particularly with the second lockdown happening? And then my final point is around 2.9 with the JAG, and just in relation to drugs and what actions being taken there. I get quite a few reports in my ward, particularly around Goldsworth Park Lake in the evenings, around some of the footpaths in Goldsworth Park, and I wonder whether any particular action was planned for that area in response to resident concerns.
Are you happy to answer that?
Yeah.
I'll ask Dave to answer on the vehicle crime things, but around the domestic abuse, again, he can comment in terms of from the policing perspective, but if I take the wider response, county-wide and nationally, we've all seen increases in domestic abuse, and it obviously was a serious concern, well, always a serious concern, but an even greater concern during lockdown. The good thing was we did manage to assist our local providers with a bit of assistance in terms of the OPCC, the Office of Police and Crime Commissioner, gave some additional funding, and that enabled them to, for instance, employ a member of staff to do more on their chat service through the helpline. And that obviously proved significant during lockdown, as some people who were experiencing domestic abuse couldn't necessarily get to the phone, but could sometimes use the chat line. So I think that was one way that we responded quite quickly. There was certainly being reported an increase in the number of referrals. Not so much, it was interesting, in the early parts of lockdown, it didn't really go up. But as we eased out of lockdown, I know it did go up. And certainly everyone was still anticipating a significant increase. And I don't think we've seen the back of that yet. I think that we will still be experiencing that over the next period of time. But they have managed to cope with the referrals. So, for instance, our local providers at Your Sanctuary, but I think it is challenging. So we shouldn't underestimate that. But currently, at a county level, they've looked to put a bit more funding into some of the provision. But it's obviously going to, going forward, it will still be a challenge. And we have been trying to put in bids where appropriate for additional funding. And I know both Your Sanctuary and the county-wide providers have been looking to where they can get additional funding to support themselves. And there's currently a county proposal that's waiting for potential funding through the Transformation Fund for I'm trying to think what they're calling, the IDVAs, the Independent Domestic Violence Advocates, to go into A&E departments in our critical hospitals. So that's, again, work in progress, but no decision taken yet. I think we're hoping for a decision before the end of the calendar year. So that's on the DA. In terms of JAG and the drugs, I know Dave has certainly, ever since he's arrived, he's been doing work, and obviously Andy Greaves before him on the drug side of things. Goldsworth Park, I can't comment on specifically, but I know there's ongoing work all the time that I'll let Dave answer if that's okay.
Thank you. Dave, did you want to pick up any of those points?
Yes, please. I'll pick up the three if that's okay.
Yes,
so the first one, vehicle crime. When we talk about vehicle crime in categories, we talk about theft from motor vehicles or theft of motor vehicles. So theft from is obviously the old gaining entry, taking items from within. And obviously theft of vehicles are coming more apparent now than they used to be through introduction of high-tech crime, really, in using things like code jammers and keyless entry locks to high-powered vehicles now. So we're seeing more and more of that. While we've seen a decrease in theft in general, we have seen an increase in relation to theft from motor vehicles and theft of motor vehicles. And I think there's some more work for us to do around prevention activity there. So around doing the messaging, do you remember a few years ago now, talking about not leaving things in sight, those kind of issues, but also some prevention work around some of the electronic bags you can get for holding keys and stuff like that for signal jamming. So that's on our list to focus on, so you'll be seeing some messaging around that coming out. In relation to domestic abuse, that obviously is a real massive concern for us. We have seen increases specifically during lockdown. I think whilst that is a concern, it's really encouraging that victims are able to come and report and talk to us, and we will take a robust approach in dealing with all domestic violence. And I'm keen and confident that we've got the support mechanisms in place as well. We've recently put out some more partnership signs and material in places where people can see that they've got access to numbers and support in your sanctuary and things such as that. So it is an ongoing battle that we're keen to do it as a partnership. And in relation to drugs, I'm concerned about drugs in general in Woking, if I'm honest, and certainly cannabis use. And certainly we've been doing a lot of work to tackle that. Goldsworth Park in particular has been assigned to one of my PCs to do a problem-solving approach on the location as a whole. And I recently saw a young people's survey, which we did, which went on a rock conversation, their youth rock group, which highlighted Goldsworth Park as well as a bit of an area of concern for young people. So it is on my radar. We are taking a problem-solving approach. We're in its early stages, but we will tackle it. And with drug offending and drug use, I think, again, there's got a prevention element to it. And I think educating young people about the effects of things such as cannabis use is really important. So we'll be picking up some work on that, and also a proactive pursuing approach where we really tackle and deal with the offenders.
Thank you very much, Dave. That's very useful. Councillor Hussain, did you want to raise a point?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I just want to say a big thank you to Dave Bentley, because we actually used him. He offered to come and speak to our residents, and I know we did it on a Zoom, but he came along to our Zoom meeting with residents, and we found that very useful. Not only did we find it useful, but he actually delivered on some of the problems that we had. So I will urge my colleagues to use David as much as they can, because he's a willing participant, and he's a breath of fresh.
Excellent.
So thank you, David.
Thank you. It's very kind.
That's very useful to know. I think you might be getting a lot of emails based on that, Dave.
Yes, and just reiterate the offers there. So if you have community meetings or meetings where I could come and contribute and help, then please let me know. I'm more than happy to, especially in the evenings or weekends.
Great, thank you so much. So I've got no other speakers on this item, in which case the recommendations on the screen should be there in a minute, in which case is the committee agreed to the recommendations on the screen, please? Yep, nodding of heads, can't hear anybody, but thank you. They're agreed. Thank you to Dave, and thank you to Camilla for attending, really appreciated. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to now move along swiftly to agenda item 30, which is the SIL 1 year review. So if you remember, we did say that we after the first year of SIL, we would have a year's review of how the process had been carried out and if there were any tweaks or improvements to the process. So the report has been written by Ernest, who very kindly is attending for any questions. I'm going to just ask Ernest just to briefly present the report before I open it up to members to comment on the review, and then I know we've got a number of SIL bids as well, so it's quite a hefty one. So if again I can remind members just to keep your points succinct and not to repeat them if they've been raised. So Ernest, if you please just outline the report for me, that'd be lovely. Thank you. You're muted, Ernest.
Thank you, Chairman. At least you are all aware that in March last year, you agreed the current arrangement by which local communities could identify local infrastructure projects and seek funding from council for the SIL money that has been earmarked for the area to deliver those projects. That has already been agreed. And in the main, the arrangement delegates responsibility to ward councillors to oversee the process in identifying first the projects and second to secure the funding to enable the delivery of the project. And after delivering the project or during the course of delivering the project, they can then submit invoices to the Deputy Chief Executive to enable payments to be made to cover the costs for which they have sought funding for. So that has already been agreed. The Joint Committee also committed to review this arrangement after 1 year, taking into account any experience of local communities drawing from the fund that they've already that has been secured for the area. You will notice that so far, only one project in West Byfleet for installation of benches has actually been approved, recognizing that there are a number of other applications that are yet to be considered today. The main concern so far had been that there is an inherent delay in the process because of the timing of when the Joint Committee meets. And therefore, if there can be any means to speed up the process, that will be helpful. And the other area of concern had been how best we can make the process user-friendly for members. And in that sense, something has also been looked into. So you will see from the recommendations, Chairman, that first, there is a recommendation to set up a subgroup who can determine applications up to the value of about 10,000 outside of normal committee meetings, which will significantly at least help speed up the process. I've also worked with the Overview and Scrutiny Committee to provide a flowchart which actually simplifies the process. So those overcomes some of the issues that had been raised. There is also a concern about whether or not there is an appeal process, and that's one that was raised during Overview and Scrutiny Committee, that if members are dissatisfied with the decisions of the Joint Committee, what they need to do. And to some extent, I've made a point in the report that where there is a disagreement or dissatisfaction with the decision, then the matter can be referred to council for a decision in that basis. But the general trend is that, at least so far, a lot of the money has not been claimed. There has been at least significant increase during this particular session, where about 4 different applications are actually on the agenda for approval. So there is an improvement in that sense. Going forward, at least one of the recommendations is to encourage members to to some extent, engage with local residents on how best the sale money could be used. So, I mean, there is the likelihood that we will see a number of applications coming forward. We have also tried to at least make sure that the information on sale is, to some extent, publicized a bit more. So all the information that members receive in terms of the sale map that provides an update, it is on the website at the moment, so that can be accessible in that sense. But that is outside the issue. That is at least to publicize what money has been earmarked for each area beyond what members do receive. And I should at least acknowledge that that information is already being published in the Green Book anyway, but it is now on the Council's website as well. So the recommendation before you, Chairman, seeks to improve the system by making it a bit more efficient in terms of the speed of delivery, and also make it a bit user-friendly by way of the flow chart that you've got. There are some issues that has been raised regarding who should project manage the project when you sort of approve the schemes. Chairman, I should emphasize that it is very, very clear in the arrangement that you have already approved that that responsibility rests with the local communities themselves. It is not the responsibility of the council. So if you wish to look at anything now, it is to some extent looking at it as part of the review rather than what you have already approved, because you've already approved that the members working with their local communities are responsible for the project managing of the projects that they have at least applied money for. So that is very, very clear in what you've already agreed. I mean, going forward, at least officers seem to think that that is a very good arrangement for doing that, because the whole essence of the money is so that local communities can have control over that money, decide how they want to use it, manage it the way they want to manage it, and to some extent take ownership of that. So if you want to change that approach, then we will need to at least look at that in detail and perhaps get back to you on that.
Thank you very much, Ernest. So I have a few speakers on this at the moment. So first is Ben. Did you want to add something to this? Ben Krasker. There you are. Yeah.
Sorry, I clicked on unmute and it refused to listen to me.
No problem.
Okay, thank you very much. The essence of SIL, as Ernest said, is to empower local communities to actually use this money. So I'm a little bit surprised that people have not been rushing forward to take the available money. Why is it only one group has come forward so far with 4 in the pipeline? That does seem to be a trickle compared to the availability of money. It's not very often that local government is this generous. So I did a bit of investigation. I went on the Surrey County website and I checked under Working Joint Committee, and SIL money does not exist on the Working Joint Committee. There's a whole list of monies available to the Joint Committee, but it does not include SIL. So if I'm a member of the public looking to exploit SIL money, the county is unhelpful. If I look at the Woking Borough site, it is a significant improvement, but even that has serious limitations because it focuses on councillors' requirements rather than a member of the public. So what I would like to see is recommendation number 2 on this item amended to say that publicity should be covered from the point of view of Joe Public on SIL on both the county website and the borough website. And that way, nobody can claim that they didn't know about the availability.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Cresco. I think that point is important. I think your main point is that the communication around SIL for the last year hasn't been as much as it needed to in order to articulate to residents that they could utilise the money, obviously, rather than exploit it, which is probably not the correct use of word. But Ernest, did you want to comment on that before I go to the next speaker? Because I know you were working on just increasing the visibility of SIL within the Woking Borough Council website, because I know I raised that issue with you previously.
Thank you, Chairman. At least Councillor Caliso has at least acknowledged the improvement that has been made to the Woking Borough Council website. So that has been done to improve it. And to some extent, we've even making it sort of interactive mapping so that anytime something is updated, the map will update by itself. So we will definitely be having up-to-date sort of information on that. One thing that we've also been doing is at least making sure that the neighborhood forums, who normally represent a body of the local areas, are adequately informed of SIL and what is available there. So, I mean, that is also something that we've been doing. And, I mean, we have also been at least encouraging members that as part of their role, at least they should also be at least making it aware within their communities the availability of the SIL money and how they need to at least work with their local residents to identify the projects that makes or provides maximum benefit to the community. So all of that, I think, will help to do that. But we as officers, at least every opportunity that we can at least explore to publicize it, we will try and do that. And I'll take Councillor Caliso's point on board and see how best we can continue to improve the publicity of it.
Thank you very much, Ernest. I'm going to move along to Councillor Whitehand as the next speaker, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Just following on from some of the comments that Councillor Carrasco says, I think it seems to me one of the unintended consequences of having it to be in support of the community, that unless there is a champion for the community, there doesn't seem to be anybody that the community can coalesce around to put forward their request. It's fine if you've got a residents association or you've got a neighbourhood forum, but there are a few areas that probably don't have that access. So I just think that maybe that's where there's fallen through the cracks, because as I say, unless you've got a champion who can garner the information from the community, go around, and I guess in some ways maybe that's us as councillors, we should be promoting it louder, is where the anomaly arises that that wards aren't coming forward. But having said that, I think maybe now we've picked up a bit of traction and this is now going to be heralded a bit louder, which is all to the benefit of the community, which is what it's in place to do. I'm really pleased that some of the proposals from the overview and scrutiny, although I will pass over to Councillor Deborah Hughes as chairman to elaborate on some of that. For instance, that on 2.7, the clarification on the maintenance on the CAL pot, because that was a bit of a grey area, so that's now been agreed, so we can move on from there. 2.9 as well, where it was an appeals process, because that was a recommendation that came out of the legal team. They felt it was good practice that there was an appeals process, and that seemed to be a bit of a hole in the process that hadn't been identified. But what really does bother me, and I can't believe that we all signed up for it, maybe I'm just in the minority, was to manage the project. And when it was put forward that we will manage it, my interpretation was that we would steer it through. We will facilitate it effectively, rather than take on the sole responsibility of chasing up that the project gets delivered and that the project is in place and the la-di-da-di-da-di-da. And I'm not comfortable with acting as a foreman for a community project. So I'd like clarification on that, if I may. Apart from that, that's all I want to say for the...
Thank you, Councillor Whitehand. Ernest, did you want to just pick up some of those points? Councillor Christie, I've noted you. I will come back to you. I was just going to get Ernest just to respond to Councillor Whitehand's points. Please, Ernest.
I mean, in some ways, Councillor Whitehand is acknowledging that some of the concerns that Overview and Scrutiny Committee had been addressed. And I think the key outstanding issue is who should be managing the projects. I mean, in some ways, across board, and I mean, I've taken the time to speak to a number of other authorities, not just in Surrey, but elsewhere. And I think most of these are being managed within the communities themselves. And as officers, we've always been there to advise in that sense. When members are leading on it, it does not necessarily mean that you do all the footwork. What it means is that you know your community very well. Sometimes volunteers have come up to manage some of these projects. And across board, there are different ways that communities have been managing their projects. And as I've always highlighted, we as officers, we can be able to signpost members to a variety of means and ways that other communities have been doing it in trying to get projects on the ground and sort of getting it going. But what it does is that you are the representatives of the community, and as such, the overall or the umbrella authority over all these projects. Rest of yourselves. It might be that to project manage something, you delegate it to the forums and they can do that. And then you make sure that at least when the project is completed, you sign it off and then draw the money and pay for that. So that is how it's been managed. But as I said, if you want to consider an alternative arrangement whereby you take out that responsibility entirely from members, then that is a different, and I don't think that will be a best way to do it. I mean, I've heard comments that the forums should be leading on it. Some people have suggested, but remember, we've only got 2 forums in Woking. And I mean, covering a very small area. And by 2 forums, I mean, we've got about 6 forums. 4 of them are, at the moment, have expired their 5-year period. We've got 2 of them who have submitted application to redesignate themselves. But at least let's assume it's even all the 6. It covers only a very small portion of the borough. So members needs to be, at least continue to play a very significant role, not necessarily doing the footwork, but at least making sure in the community there is something and somebody who will be sort of volunteering to lead on this project. For most authorities, what this has done is that at least it's also brought the unintended benefit, which is sort of social benefits of delivering the schemes, identifying community cohesion and everything, and sort of coalescing around project delivery and taking ownership of that. So I think it's still a very good model. But if the Joint Committee wants to consider alternative, then we will look into it and explore.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to Councillor Boot next.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd just like to ask, thank you, Ernest, for your report, by the way. A few questions. First of all, the subgroup or the task group, how often is it going to meet? Who will it consist of? And who will chair it? Is this going to be a formal group? I couldn't get that sense from your report. Secondly, I really feel, as Councillor Whitehand has said, that this puts a lot of responsibility on the shoulders of the ward councillors. And as the only ward councillor yet to have progressed a project through the process, I have to say that was very laborious and time intensive, and it was just for 3 benches in the park. We're about to put a couple of other small projects through under the £10,000 kind of bracket. But our next big project we want to do is to build a community centre or a village hall, which is a massive project. And there is absolutely no way that it frightens me to think I'm going to have to oversee a project like that. I don't have the skill set and experience. I don't have the time. I'm more than busy being a county and a borough councillor with all the work that gives me. So are we allowed, for example, to employ project managers who have got professional experience of this? Because if it all goes wrong, I feel it's going to come back on me. And finally, what are we paying you 5% for if we're doing all the work? Surely that should be to remunerate the councillors for all the extra work we're going to have to do. So honestly, I'm very worried about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boo. Do you want to pick up some of those points?
Yeah, Chairman, with the subgroup, I think the subgroup will determine their own terms of reference, how often they wish to meet. I don't think we need to be prescriptive until you've identified the subgroup, and they will decide how often they will meet. But the whole idea is that at least they will be able to at least consider applications online, do so quickly. So at least once that you've decided the number of people that you want to select to form the subgroup, they will sort of decide how often they want to determine the applications. In terms of project managing it, I think, yes, Councillor Booth, you can be able to at least identify somebody or employ somebody to project manage it. Normally, if you are putting in your application, the whole intention is that the cost of the project should include project managing of the project itself. So yes, that cost can be included, but that cost will come on the back of the money that has been earmarked for yourself or your local community. The 5%, that you are talking about, the 5% is actually, prescribed by government for the council to set it aside to enable the process to be managed. And the intention is, beginning with the process, how you determine the sale, how you issue liability notice, how you collect the money, how you set up the systems to do it. That is what the 5% is sort of intended to be used for. But again, as I said, it's something that if the Joint Committee wants to make a recommendation to Council to consider, then it needs to be looked into. I should emphasize that if you want to use that amount of money to engage somebody or a number of officers to do it, all members have got information on that amount. You will see that continuously that would not have been sufficient to do that anyway. Secondly, given the nature of the way that the sale money comes, because we don't have control as to how much you get per any particular time period, the council will need to really sort of look at financing such a resource to be able to do that. But again, almost all other areas who have been doing it, they have been able to at least provide project management resource as part of the costing of the project when they are putting in the application. And that is what we need to encourage all members to do.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to go to Councillor Christie next. Councillor Deborah Hughes, I have got you. I haven't forgotten you, but I'm just going to go to members and then I'll come to you if that's okay. So Councillor Christie, if you want to go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm going to tackle this in, can we say a number of boxes to some extent, because I've just taken forward a very complex application which involved every difficulty you could find, which I've had to solve. I've had great help from borough officers such as David Edwards, such as Gareth John in the legal department, which has been excellent. But the real difficulty is saying that, in fact, ward members should be responsible, and the word is responsible, which comes up again and again and again in documentation. They're responsible for the project management and for the delivery. That is not on. And Councillor Elson asked me this afternoon to make it very clear that though he can't attend this evening, he totally agrees with me. And the Overview and Scrutiny Committee have made the point quite strongly as well. The ward councillor is not responsible. Now, however, the ward councillor is there to make sure that it happens. He's there to make sure, we'll say, arrange that surveys are done, satisfactory surveys, that project management takes place, and that is, in fact, we'll see inspecting works as it goes by. And actually, the cost of getting surveyors to inspect works is quite high. So you start off with a figure and look at quite an increase if you're going to have it managed. And what I was looking at was an emergency situation in Perford, which threw up a number of other items as well. I'm not going into the details, we'll come on shortly to the detail of the case, but we need to, in fact, get down to sorting out this question of who's responsible. Yes, the ward councillors are there to make sure that the money is well spent. And I think Ernest Amaku has made a very good point. We need to look at alternative routes. Well, I discussed that this afternoon with Douglas Spinks. And basically, it seems to me that as I only saw the papers this morning, that we really need to think very carefully about the detail, because that's what's been the problem to date. It needs sorted out. Quite a bit of it needs to be put down simply and in what plain English that we need to do. There's some very good suggestions being made by Ernest Amaku in connection with, yes, we do need to have an appeal committee.
Let's thank you, Councillor Christie. I think your point.
Sorry, can I just say as well that it is very important, Madam Chair, that we cannot proceed tonight with the paper in the way it's in. We haven't had a chance to go through it or debate it in detail, which is necessary. Douglas Spinks has said, yes, of course we can sit down and we want to get it right. I would be suggesting deferment tonight of this paper.
Ernest, would you just like to maybe pick up a few of those points? I will come to you, Douglas. I will come to you. Ernest, if you wanted to just put that. I mean, I know the paper has been out for a while, so that point is incorrect, but please just pick up some of the
Chairman, I just want to brief, because I've addressed the question very clearly, that at least you've already agreed that this should be led by councillors, and I think that is the right approach to do it. And what I'm saying is that by councillors taking the responsibility, does not necessarily mean that they are doing the footwork. It's a community project. So within the community, councillors should lead in the process of identifying that. And I should be I should clarify one point. I don't think the overview and scrutiny committee, the minutes is very clear. They had sought clarification as to who is responsible. And I think that has been made clear on that. They didn't decide as to whether or not members should do it or not. They have sought clarification as to who is responsible, which has been made clear about who is responsible in the current arrangement. So that is very, very clear on that one. But I think, as I said, the costing of who should project manage it can be borne out of the money that has been earmarked for the local community.
Okay. Thank you. Douglas Spinks, did you want to make a point, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I think it's important to acknowledge that you had some subsequent reports on individual requests which are reported in accordance with the procedure and system that was set up by this committee in March 2019. And just for absolute clarity, the conclusion of that report had a sentence in it saying ward borough councillors in conjunction with county divisional councillors are asked to take the lead role in managing the process. So where we are is what we have currently set up. The paper before you is seeking to review that. If members are not now minded to agree with what they previously agreed, then obviously there can be a conversation about changing it. But we have always been clear, we're not saying it means ward councillors or divisional councillors have to project manage processes. They can get others to do it, but it will not be done, and the report was clear on this, by council officers, because we haven't got the resource to do it. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much. So I'm gonna move along now to Anne-Marie Barker, who's been waiting patiently. Anne-Marie, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I think also Councillor Aziz was right at the beginning of that list. I don't know if you missed him because he was ahead of Councillor Booth, I believe.
I'm sorry, I didn't have him. I didn't have him on my list. Councillor Aziz, did you want to raise a point, Councillor Aziz? I'm sorry if I missed you.
Yes, I think for a few people, so I don't blame you, Chairman, for that. Okay. Yeah, don't want to go my details again. A couple of points about this subgroup. I'm not very clear. It's not a bad idea, to be honest, if we have some more frequent meetings and also, you know, just I think we can have any figure rather than having a 10,000 figure. If you know, it gives you more opportunity. Some projects come through community at some time, so subgroup can consider. Normally, we don't approve millions of worth projects anyway. It's only a few hundred thousand, few thousand, 20, 30 max. So that I think if it's going to some sort of kind of task group, so they can do if we going that route as well, or giving just assuming that we're having only 4 joint committee meetings a year. So then some sort of task group give us a more flexibility.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
Not a bad idea.
Right, that's the whole point of the task group, that it can meet more often as in when bids come through. It can be a lot more nimble in meeting. Okay, I'm gonna.
No, one more thing, but I just want to clarify. I think Amanda made earlier the point. I'm pretty certain that council do not directly involve of any delivery of any project. All we do, we recommend to local organizations, and they have their own internal setup, and they deliver their projects.
Okay,
I can't see the council doing themselves. Yeah.
Lovely, Councillor Anne-Marie, if you can just make your points, please.
Right, yes, thanks very much. I'd just like to pick up on the points we've had around the project management. It's clear that there is a lack of clarity on this. My recollection of the meeting where this went through, it was very much pushed through the meeting despite concerns being raised, and there certainly wasn't unanimity on it. We do need, I think, a paper from officers just making it absolutely clear what we do, perhaps picking up some good examples from other areas, and perhaps it's something we could discuss at one of the private meetings of this committee and have more of a discussion about what actually works for us and make sure everyone is clear about that. I think some of that clarity would be helped if there was actually a form to fill in. I've seen we've got a list of items, but I think just a few prompts on what needs to be considered. So in looking at your costs for a larger scheme, you're going to need to consider what the project management costs are going to be, for example, could all be on there. So I think if we could have an application form, that would be a great help. I don't think the councils have a problem in bringing things to the committee now. I think we've got that one sorted, as evidenced by a number of applications on the agenda today. But I think there are problems in the next stage, really. That's where the real issues are. If I could just pick up on the flow chart, perhaps I could take it offline, but I do think the second item down on the flow chart is a little confusing because it talks about a neighbourhood plan, and that's not something that all areas would have. And it appears to be an either or to the item on the other side of the flow chart about a programme and identified projects, which it doesn't agree with the previous point on ward councillors having discussed things in partnership with their county colleagues and so on. So I just wondered if we could, I'll drop Ernest a note about that and just see if we could clarify on that point. Very much in favour of a cross-party committee, and perhaps there could be a schedule for it to meet monthly, but just drop the meeting if there weren't any applications to be considered for that would be useful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I go to Ernest, I'm going to go to Councillor Deborah Hughes, who's been waiting patiently. Councillor Deborah Hughes, please go ahead.
Thank you. Well, first of all, I'd really like to thank Ernest very, very much for his support and the amount of time he actually spent working with us in the Review and Scrutiny Committee looking at this item. Obviously, it came to the committee because of concern that councillors weren't actually utilising the NSL monies and we're trying to expedite that usage. I'm really pleased that many of the recommendations that Overview and Scrutiny put forward have been accepted in the review paper. I would like just to clarify that 214 of the Overview and Scrutiny report did say that we do need to have clarity that the ward councillor is not expected to act as the project manager. And I suppose the concern here has been widely expressed. And I think we're gaining that clarity, and I think a little bit more clarity on it would be really helpful, perhaps with some sort of indication about what sort of indemnities we carry as councillors in this respect would be helpful. I'd like just to reiterate that the process has got to be simple. Obviously, Ernest has identified that the flowchart will need to be reviewed in the light of this paper being accepted. But I can see a point where if you've got big projects, we're not going to know exactly how much money we're going to need until we've actually had a survey. And in order to get a survey, we're going to need to have some money. So we do need to have a process that we can actually get it started and maybe can go in several stages when we actually know quite how much the project is going to be, if we're looking at something that's beyond a park bench. But I really hope that now we get the NSIL money utilised and we'll be able to kickstart this process a little bit further. And my thanks to all concerned in getting it to this point. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Some valid points there. I mean, I think this report has been through the consultation process. It has been to the ONS committee who have fed their comments into it. I mean, generally the review, this whole process is up for annual review. So any of the points raised that are not covered in the paper, then of course will be picked up as we go through the year in terms of actually getting this process activated, because I would much rather get it activated rather than stall the process at this moment in time. But Ernest, please, if there's any comments you wanted to add.
Chairman, there's only one outstanding point which has not been covered, which is raised by Councillor Barker about having an application form to complete. I think that's a good idea. We will circulate a form to yourself to agree, and that will be at least circulated to all members and put on the website as well.
Okay,
and to
thank
some
you.
extent, that would ensure consistency of the application process.
Okay, thank you. And I think Councillor Boot put in the chat in terms of members of the subgroup. So if members just notify Nikki in terms of if they'd like to be members of the subgroup, that would be fine. We don't want the subgroup too large. We want it to be quite nimble in order to be able to meet. But I think Councillor Barker's point about it meeting on a regular basis is also fine. So I'm going to proceed ahead and put the recommends on screen and get members to agree to that, please, because I do then want to actually go on to the bids that have been requested by different ward members. Are these recommendations agreed, please? Okay.
Yeah, can I?
Yes.
Can I request that the addition I suggested at the outset, that the documentation on the county website must include a mirror image or comparable image to what is on the borough website.
Right.
Because
okay.
at the moment there is nothing.
Thank you. Thank you. I will pick that up separately with Nikki, if that's okay. Then we can do that.
Yep. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. Thank you. I note, Deborah, who's your point. That's fine. Thank you very much. So I'm going to move along because time is pressing on. If these recommends are agreed, we're going to go on to agenda item 14, which is the SIL funding bid for Knapp Hill Ward.
Excuse me, Chair, a second, please. I couldn't get in there. I have to say that I strongly disagree with going ahead at this stage when we could be looking at an alternative. Excuse me. I have to say I strongly disagree. I need to note this.
And your disagreement is noted, Councillor Christie.
Thank you. And we need to get it right this time. Please, we need to look at an alternative, not to spend ages on it, but can we have maybe 2 weeks to do so?
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to move along to agenda item 14. As I said, the Knapp Hill Ward. Is there anybody any ward member that wants to comment on this, which is a great request for SIL funding, good use of money. I haven't got my chat box open, so I can't see who wants to speak on it. Councillor Whitehand, ward member, if you wanted to speak on your particular bid or your ward's bid.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I was expecting Councillor Hussain. Is he not there? I can't see because all I can see in front of me now is the Working Joint Committee. Oh, there we go. Councillor Hussain, did you want to speak on this?
Oh, he's asking.
You can take it on.
Yeah, go ahead, please. Just make it succinct.
Very succinct.
Thank you.
Obviously, it speaks for itself. It's very self-explanatory. I just hope everyone will support it. Thank you.
Oh, excellent. That was lovely. Yes, if there's no other speakers on this, is this agreed? It's a request. Yep, agreed. Excellent. I'm gonna, go on to 15, which is the funding bid for St John's, and we have the Ward Councillor Graham Cundy here, who would like to speak on that particular item. Councillor Cundy, are you here?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much, and good evening, everybody. And thank you, Madam Chairman. Unfortunately, as I said, we've still got. I'll look to my right because we still have the funding bid to the left of the screen, so I can't see you all as I speak to you. This proposal is to provide a firm footing for access to and around the World War I memorial in St John's, a memorial that is in fact maintained by the council. A honeycomb structure will provide a firm foundation over which grass will be reinstated. The memorial is a Grade 2 listed structure and represents key infrastructure, providing a focus for Remembrance Day and other occasions during the year. The memorial is of historic interest, remembering the sacrifices made in World War I, and it is quite significant that we are hearing this application today on Remembrance Day. Many of the names listed on the memorial relate to families still living within the community. It was constructed by stonemasons, Fanner and Bridley, who constructed the Albert Memorial and the Natural History Museum. The proposal has local support, and I request members to support this application. I would comment that the memorial is situated in a closed graveyard, and indeed the council are responsible for the maintenance of that graveyard and indeed responsible for the upkeep of the memorial itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cundy, is the bid for St John's Ward agreed? Agreed.
Great.
And there you go. Councillor Cundy, it's agreed. Thank you for attending.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm now going to move. Okay, so it's just there for members to note the request for funding. And then I'm going to move along to agenda item 16, which is the SIL funding bid for Perfect. And I see that Councillor Christie has raised his hand. Go ahead, Councillor Christie, as I can't really see my chat box, but I can see your hand. Go ahead. Councillor Christie, you're muted.
There we are. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I have pleasure in presenting this application for a maximum of £14,000 to the amount of the Perfect Neighbourhood Forum Fund going towards repairs to the rather key piece of infrastructure in the village, which is the cricket pavilion, in other words, the cricket clubhouse, which the cricket field and the outfield and the fields roundabout, it's all maintained by the cricket club. The cricket club is very successful in the last 4 years. It's bringing on girls' teams, which are doing very well in Surrey leagues and nationally. We have a successful club, but like many clubs, it lives from day to day. And a matter of about 2.5 weeks ago, it was reported to me that they'd found the ceiling of the pavilion, which is a key part of the clubhouse, was falling down, and the front wall was bulging. There was an immediate question of whether the building was safe. I was very, very grateful to David Edwards, the Chief Building Control Surveyor from the borough, to come in and say it's not at present unsafe because you've got metal props in to hold it up, but it's potentially unsafe, and urgent repairs are necessary. Okay, going forward from that, the cricket club chairman and the cricket club buckled round. We had assistance from others as well, putting in some money. Cricket club of about £5,000, and with £14,000, which has been voted by the neighbourhood forum, we meet the initial best case scenario of the cost of repairs. That's roughly £19,000. So excellent, we've got that. But on the other hand, we have a worst case scenario. That is, if the massive plastic double glazed windows, which are bulging, cannot be reused. If they can't be reused, it's going to cost us another 10,000 or so. So it might go up to 28,000. The key to this was to get estimates and then quotations. And we're quite happy now. We have a quotation which is accepted, which is specified here. But we have this difficulty as well of saying, what do we do if the windows have to be replaced? So inquiries have been made by the club.
Councillor Christie, I'm going to ask you to wrap it up because I have two other speakers on this item.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep, so
frankly,
you have 10 more seconds.
That's fine. We're satisfied. We can actually go ahead. It is recommended right across.
Lovely.
Thank you very
Excellent.
much.
Thank you so much. Councillor Liz Bowes, if you could just make it succinct, please.
I will try and make this very brief.
Thank you.
I fully support this SIL application. It's a good example of SIL working well. As Councillor Christie has said, it is used throughout the year by different groups. Just for the purposes of transparency, I feel I have to record that I've also agreed from my Surrey County Council local allocation £1,000 to help towards these repairs, but I think it needed to be mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowes. And Anne-Marie Barker, last person to speak on this, please.
Thank you, Chair. Fully support this application. Good to see another one that isn't just picnic benches. But I'm just a bit puzzled. I have a question on point 4 of the report here, consultations. It tells me that Councillor David Bittleston, the chair of the Woking Joint Committee, has been consulted, which appears to be about a year or so out of date, but also that Councillor Gary Elson, the portfolio holder for planning, has been consulted. I understood the portfolio holder for planning was Graham Cundy, so I'm just not quite sure why that's incorrect.
Okay, the planning portfolio holder is indeed Gary Elson. That is correct, and I think that just needs to be updated in terms of David Bittleston. I think that's just an oversight, but thank you.
Oh, right, so we weren't aware of that before. Does that not need to go through council or something to be approved?
You mean the executive?
Or the executive or somewhere?
No, the change of leader can decide on their executive, and I think a press release was put out for the new executive, and that was the change.
I haven't seen it given to councillors. It wasn't mentioned at our. Okay, that's fine. It's strange not to have heard about it.
No, it was as the change in leader was announced. That's the point it was done. But no, I note that you haven't. That news hasn't got to you, but that is correct. Okay, so where are we?
Chairman, just a point of clarification.
Yes.
You notice from the reports that the reports that came earlier, they were consulted under the old portfolio holder. Perfect one, Councillor Elson is the portfolio holder. That's why he is consulted. So you notice that, I mean, the earlier ones, the old portfolio holder was consulted. The latter ones, the current portfolio holder had been consulted. And that's why you see two different portfolio holders for the two different, or for the applications that you've got before you. Regarding the leader, the earlier ones, you recall that by the leaders briefing, Councillor Bittleston was actually leading on it. That's why, I mean, he was consulted on the earlier ones, and the latest one, at least now that you are chairing, at least the next ones, all of them will be reflected in your name in that sense.
Okay. Lovely. Thank you for that clarification, Ernest. That's useful. So the community infrastructure bid is agreed for Perfect. Agreed. It's just there, just for members to note. Thank you. and then I'm going to move along. So we've got an additional report on Goldsworth Park benches bid, which is item 16A, I think. So, Anne-Marie Barker, did you want to speak on that? Have we got that on screen, Nikki?
Yep, it's on screen at the moment.
Okay, lovely.
Yeah, it's come up.
Okay.
So I'd just like to thank Nikki and the committee very much for accepting this application, which came in a little bit late in the day. I'm afraid this is more picnic benches, but Goldsworth Park decided it'd be a good idea to spend its vast amount of SIL money. Obviously not an area for great development, but we just have a little bit of money, and this was consulted on at the Goldsworth Park Community Association and through communications with residents through the local magazine as well. A few ideas came up, but this is what people settled on. Currently, at the moment, obviously, with the various lockdowns and people being at home more, using the outdoor space, then Goldsworth Park and the recreation ground is very well used. So this seems an ideal place to make some provision with the SIL money. I'd just like to thank the chair of the GPCA, Irene Watson, who in fact did all of the legwork about finding out the costings of these benches and sourcing them. And I'd very much appreciate the committee's support to put this through.
Great, thank you very much. Councillor Hussain, you've indicated to speak on this item.
Yes, Chair. Similarly, I'd just like to echo what Councillor Barker just said, to thank the GPCA for their involvement, and these benches will be a good addition to the park. It is well used. So,
thank you. I did say no repetition, but hey ho, that's fine. Okay, is this agreed? The Goldsworth Park bid for the benches?
Yes.
Great. Okay, that's agreed. Now I know, Councillor Boot, you did put in a very late request for some SIL funding, if I remember correctly. And what I recommend with that is that can perhaps be the first one that goes to the subgroup, because we haven't been able to do any, because the bid was put in quite late, we haven't been able to form any supplementary reports. So what I will do on that particular bid is just push it forward as the first one for the subgroup as soon as it's formed. So I hope that's okay with you. I'm going to move along.
Can I just say that's great? I didn't get the quotes from the officers until the 30th of October, and you'd already did the agenda for the meeting.
No problem. Well, I mean, I'm glad the subgroup will be meeting soon and deciding on a particular bid. So that's a good use of that's fine.
Good way to test the process. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you. I just didn't want you to think I'd forgotten that, so that's absolutely fine. I'm just going to move along now to agenda item 17, which is task groups and membership of the task groups. They are there. So I'm just going to forward on to Nikki. Nikki, if you could just
Absolutely, yes. On an annual basis, we review any terms of reference that need to be reviewed, which there are no changes. But we just review the membership just to recognise councillors' workloads do change throughout the year, and to ensure that we have the right people that can attend the right meetings. So I did email round to councillors to ask if anyone wanted to stand down from their current groups. The one that we have the real issue on is, I believe, the Health and Wellbeing Task Group, where both Aisha and Simon Lashall have requested to stand down from that task group. So we are short of 2 people for that one. If anyone would like to step forward now, that would be really helpful. The other one that will need to change is the Infrastructure Working Group, just in terms of it's usually the chair and vice chair on that group. So if members are happy, then we will replace Councillor David Bittleston with Councillor Simon Elson. Ashall, sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. And I was just going to say, in terms of the Health and Wellbeing Task Group, it'd be quite useful to get a borough and a county councillor on that particular task group. I assume Councillor Whitehand and Deborah Hughes will want to stay on, but I think for the other 2 it might be useful to get borough and County. So I've got two speakers on this. Who have I got? I have Councillor Hughes first and then Anne-Marie Barker. Yes, there you go. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you for this. So I only saw this today, so my apologies for giving you late notice. This is actually an old version of the Health and Wellbeing Task Group. The Health and Wellbeing Task Group worked last year on updating the task group terms of reference in light of a amalgamation with the Early Health Advisory Group. This new revised terms of reference went to the Joint Committee on 25th of September last year. So yes, it is due for review, but it is the new version which is due for review, not the old version. In the new version, it does say up to 4 councillors, up to 2 from local borough and up to 2 from Surrey County Council. I'm perfectly flexible. At the meeting we had this afternoon, we had Councillor Harlow, who came from obviously a ward councillor. Very happy to have a Surrey County councillor to replace Councillor Azad, as I understand she wishes to step down. The terms of reference was reviewed in light of changes with Surrey Heartlands and the ICP and taking more integration on board, as many of you will be aware. I would like to move in terms of all of the task groups that in the terms of reference, it states that task group minutes are private. And could we actually make it public unless otherwise stated? It would be really nice if these task group minutes were actually available for public consumption without a freedom of information request. So I think I need to let you have the revised terms of reference, which although you should have a copy, I'll make sure you get one as soon as possible.
Lovely, thank you. Councillor Barker.
Thank you, Chair. No, I'm okay, actually. I don't need to speak anymore.
Okay, thank you. So if you can just give your names to Nikki, I think is probably the best person. Just saying that which task groups you want to go on, which tasks you might want to change. I think now is the time to do it. And if that's agreed, I'm going to move along now to agenda item 18. You don't need anything else on that, do you, Nikki?
It would be quite handy now if people wanted to come forward for the health and wellbeing task group. I'm just conscious that
I was just giving members, you know, maybe a bit of time, maybe to mull it over. But if you want them to cite it now,
do we have anyone that that would like to fill
Liz
that gap?
Bow has indicated. Liz.
Yes, I'd be happy to take a post if that's okay. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Fantastic. You have a very capable county councillor there. Excellent. So that covers that covers me. We just need somebody from the borough.
But there's already 2 borough councillors on there, isn't there? It says 2 borough and 2 county. There's already 2 borough because you've got Melanie and Deborah on there.
Okay, so is that enough? Do we not need one more?
Well, there should be one more, but it says 2. If it's supposed to be 2 borough and 2 county, you've got 3 people. So before there was only 1 county person on there, but you now the criteria says you want 2 county people on there.
Okay, is the criteria met, Nikki? Is that okay? Because Simon is not going to be there, so you're going to have Melanie, you're going to have Deborah, and you're going to have Liz.
Yeah, I think the councillor's right in that we could have a second county councillor on there, ideally.
One more county?
Yes, please.
Go on, put me down.
Okay,
Fantastic.
excellent. That's Councillor Hussain.
Brilliant.
Excellent. Okay, and I mean the list is there for the others. If you want to swap around or change, then I guess now is the time to speak. Otherwise, it's cited there. Okay, if that's agreed. Lovely. I'm going to move along now to agenda item 18. Excellent. We're almost there. So this is just for the committee to note and comment on the decision tracker, which is pages 171 and 172 on the report. No comment. I can't see. Oh, I haven't got my chat box. Okay, lovely. That's noted. And then we're going to agenda item 19, which is the forward plan.
Yes, if I could very quickly introduce this, just to say the forward plan details any items that we know that we want to have coming up. Please, if members know of any other interesting items or items that they want to put forward, then please do contact me. Our plan at the moment, at present, is to have 3 meetings next year in March, June and November. And the suggested dates was the 10th of March, but actually there is a slight clash with another meeting. So I'm suggesting the 17th or 24th instead, and then the 23rd of June and the 10th of November, in line with our normal regular times for these meetings. So unless members have a particular desire for either the 17th or 24th, yeah, just leave it open to you, really.
Thank you, Nikki. Anne-Marie, you indicated. You're muted.
Yeah, sorry, as I tried to unmute, the screen moved around and my mouse got very confused. Thank you. Yeah, I'm just puzzled as to why we're dropping to 3 meetings a year when it used to be 4 meetings a year. We've seen there's quite a lot on this agenda, having missed the meetings. Would it not be sensible to have a September meeting and then maybe an early December meeting, which I think was the old pattern of meetings? It seems a very long time between March and November. I know we've moved the smaller SIL proposals, for example, to a subcommittee, which makes perfect sense, but there could be larger ones that would have a very long wait. Residents often have a number of issues they want to raise, and again, there's a very long wait in between. So I really would like to see a September meeting being on the agenda. I'm very pleased about March the 10th moving, it's my birthday, but I'm happy with 17th or 24th.
Excellent. We knew it was your birthday, that's why we did it. No, so Councillor, who's next? Councillor Whitehand.
Well, thank you, Chairman. It was just really to echo on what Councillor Barker said. I'm a bit curious to know why we've dropped our whole meeting. There are only 4 a year. It's not as if they're 4 a week or 4 a month even. And I think to go from 3 a year down to, from 4 a year down to 3 a year is a bit of a big stretch. And I would like to think that we have enough stuff to discuss, especially in light of the SIL applications maybe, that we can continue with 4 a year. I can't believe it's too onerous of us all not to pitch up for an extra meeting. It's only once every 3
Thank you, Councillor Whitehand. Point noted. Councillor Aziz.
Yeah, exactly the same thing I want to say, nothing else. So I think we should stick with
point.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Point noted. Nikki.
Yes, can I just raise that this was in line with the fact that we are finding that sometimes the decision making in December, we don't have masses of decisions for the December meeting, but also to recognise that we are starting to do things quite differently, making use of Zoom facilities, but looking at how we can actually do public engagement sort of outside of committee meetings. And so we're working with Woking Borough Council to look at the possibilities and potentials for these. We have in some of the other areas held some very, very successful community engagement forums. In Surrey Heath, for example, we actually held an online meeting addressing online cyber scams. And you know, we feel that we're quite well served tonight by members of the public attending and coming to this meeting. But on that online forum, we far exceeded any amount of public engagement that we've done to date. And not only that, but we actually live streamed it onto Facebook, and that our views kind of reached lots and lots of different people on that. So so do rest assured that we're not looking to reduce the meetings in order to reduce public engagement. We're actually looking to increase public engagement, but just looking at what's actually needed in order to make those committee decisions. And I think this is something that we could all have a discussion about at a private informal meeting, just really to look at what we can do and, you know, and how we can work with members to actually get something that fits the needs for Woking.
Okay, thank you. I think that would be very useful to have an informal discussion with members of the committee on how to. It's a different format of engagement rather than the formal structure of the joint committee, but I think it's very useful for members to engage with that and feed into that process and take their views. Nikki, so if you could set something along that would be very useful. I have who do I have? Amanda Boo, I think, has indicated.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to say I think the public engagement initiatives sound great. I'm all for that, but I would like to see 4 meetings a year, even if the December meeting's very short and sweet and we all end up wishing each other happy Christmas and have an early night. I still think there's quite a lot of stand business that we have to get through in these.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ashall.
Hi, yeah, I understand why people want to have a particular number of meetings, but I think the number of meetings should be determined by the amount of business that we have to do. It's not just a question of us all hopping onto Zoom. We have officers who've got to give up their evening in the council chamber running the meeting. We have all the resource that goes into the meeting to begin with, and I think that needs to be worth the amount of work that goes into each of these meetings. So I'm not really in favour of turning up and wishing everybody happy Christmas. I think we need to respect the amount of effort that goes into the running of the committee, and I'm sure the Councillor Boot does, and I know she understands that. But I'm being slightly flippant by re-quoting her back, and I don't mean to be. But I think it is an important point that it's not just about us logging onto Zoom.
I think that's a valid point. There's no need to have meetings for the sake of meetings. The meetings need to be driven by decision making and workload. So, but I'm mindful of what residents have said, and I will discuss that with Nikki, and we will open that in a formal manner so that we can all discuss that. But thank you very much. If there's nothing else on the forward plan, which I don't think there is, I'm then coming to the end of the meeting. So thank you everyone for your time today. It was a bit of a marathon, concluding the meeting at exactly 9:31. Thank you for attending, and the recording will now stop. Thank you, and have a nice evening, what's left of it.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.